Today's video is brought to you by Prize Picks, America's #1 sports app. And when you use my code right now, HMA, they'll put $50 in your account when you put a $5 lineup down. Hard to beat that. They've got baseball, basketball, heck, they've even got the seasonal picks up here for the NFL season. Terms and conditions do apply. Please do remember to gamble responsibly.
See if it's, are we okay now? I might have to just restart it. Good now? Okay. Woo! Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what happened. It's, that's the beauty of live shows. Sometimes stuff pops up. So, let me start again from scratch. Shout out to Megan for the text there. I would have probably been talking for a good 50 minutes or so before I would have figured that one out. We're in that depth of the off season, and it's a good time, I think, to look at things a little bit retrospectively, especially little stories and things that might slip between the cracks, and things that are going to be not only, just interesting for what they were last year, but also, I think, portend to being able to help out this team in the future in a really nice way. And what I mean by that is that we've got a couple of players on this team that are sort of these, what I would have called in the past, X factor players, but really true players of talent that you don't quite know what you really fully got in them yet. But there are guys that showed you some real flashes in what they brought to the table last year. And we've, of course, Riley Mills, the Super Bowl sack, had a couple of snaps in there as well last year as they slowly got him acclimated in because of that late ACL injury that he had. He's one of those type of guys that I would, put onto that list. And there's a few others that are, sprinkled on in through this team that you kind of look at and you go, well, that guy could be, kind of interesting as a long-term guy here. Elijah Arroyo, can he become that, weapon X on the offense and give you that opportunity to really be able to hit some mismatches, especially when you catch defenses in base. But another one of those guys is Tory Horton. And Tory Horton is a guy that I don't think we're talking enough about. And I think that there's, many reasons for this. You have a Super Bowl team like we do with stars and so many good players and so many just good starters. There's a lot of good to have to sift through and discuss. And so when you have a player that's up and coming or might have had a bit of a blip and then went away due to injury, that you sort of forget about him a little bit. But Tory Horton actually last year really burst onto the scene at a time when you really needed it. This was prior to the Rashid Shaheed trade. And it was a time when, you were really needing somebody to come in and serve in a little bit more of that X role. He did a little bit more of the slot stuff in addition to that. So you needed a little bit more of a guy that could fit in that way. And in Tory Horton, you got that for a little bit of a collection of games until the injuries came up. Now, this was at a time where you were passing at a high rate, and he had a very short season due to the injuries, but the short season was nonetheless very impressive. 13 receptions, only 161 yards, 5 receiving touchdowns. And then he also popped in with 238 yards on punt returns and a 95-yard punt return touchdown. So it was a year where he wasn't playing a lot because of the injuries. And then when Shaheed came in here, Seattle, I think, may have been able to bring him back in, but kind of went, well, let's just shut him down. Let this thing heal up. Let's not, deal with this. Let's just let him have his rookie year come back. Because remembering as we go back and understand with Tory, and let's go a little bit back a little bit to why I'm so excited for him here going to the future, is that this isn't a guy that just kind of became really good last year, right as he came in for a little short 3-game span, and then bingo bango, that's all he's really done. And it was okay with like scattered college career. No, not at all, actually. When you look at him statistically going back to college, you have him at Nevada first and then transferring to Colorado State. And he posts 2,000-yard seasons at Colorado State, 1,131 yards and 8 touchdowns. And then in 2023, 1,136, almost matching the same year, though he had about 96 receptions that year, so the receptions went up. But then also 8 touchdowns. So had almost equivalent seasons back-to-back, not at some powerhouse program that's known for being a prestigious as far as their passing attack goes, but still was very, very good. And then you had within this the 26 receptions for 353 yards in his final year. And this was because, of course, the fact that he was injured. He got injured that final year, wasn't 100%, out most of that season. And this seemed to kind of dog him a little bit through the draft process and through the through the draft process as far as people's consideration of him as well too. Kind of cool with this. Just wanted to show you on this part, the punt return touchdown, also legitimate when you go back to him in college. A lot of usage as a punt returner at that time. He had a punt return touchdown in 22, and 23, and 24. And by the way, that was on 72 yards, 79 yards, and 78 yards. So the man's got a natural ability as a punt returner. We saw it last year, even in the sample size, but that sample size is also a characterization of what he's been as a punt returner if you go back to what he was in college. Hell, the guy can even throw the rock. 5 of 6 for 151 yards in his career in passing on trick plays, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I don't know if we're going to ask him to do that. I have a feeling that Mike from last year might have a little bit of PTSD when it comes to trick plays because that stuff was just not working last year when they tried to call upon it. But what he did in college was really impressive. In that final year, NFL teams are kind of brutal. And in my opinion, sometimes NFL teams, when it comes to medicals, there are those teams that overlook medicals, and I think there are those other teams with medicals that will sometimes let it hold a little bit too much weight on the process and have you then kind of pass on a player almost solely because of this, where, yeah, there's going to be some risk involved, but boy, the returns on the potential of this player, because if he comes back out in Colorado State and he puts up another 1,000-yard season, and you're talking about a guy 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons, probably talking about a guy that's high second rounder, maybe even into the top of the first round in that draft, given the fact that it wasn't exactly a draft that was stacked to the roof with great wide receivers, especially guys like him that can play X, Z, slot. He can do it all as far as every wide receiver position in the book and do it comfortably. And we got to see that from him last year. When you watched how he was winning out there and the way he was going about his business, what stood out is that he was winning in a variety of ways from a couple of different places. Again, understanding and acknowledging this is certainly a sample size, but this is one where you're seeing that he's got a full skill set that he brings to the table. He's got a nose for the end zone. Sam certainly trusted him down in the red zone. You see on a play like this, he runs a crosser, gets completely freed up through the crosser. Tampa Bay gets lost on the play action. Sam with some great movement in the pocket and then goes and finds Tory. But you find Tory, as I go through these reps, every time with his reps, you can always find something good he's doing within the rep to create the catch. Is this Sam doing a lot of this by extending the play? Yes. Crossers take a long time to get all the way to the other side of the field. So when you see Tory Horton at the top side of his screen here, number 15, watch how he navigates the lack of contact. I mean, he doesn't allow himself to get hung up here. First, avoid there. Now I'm in the clearance. So in the timing of this play, if he gets to this guy right here, Levante David, and he allows Levante David, who's a pretty strong guy as a middle linebacker, to give him a nice little shuck, as he's trying to, right? Then that's bad. He manages to avoid it, turns into just a glancing blow. Then you've got the other middle linebacker, seemingly like, if you look at here, both of these linebackers are trying to do the same thing, which is they're trying to prevent this crossing route from getting over there on a timely basis. And he gets through both pieces of contact there. And that's how he creates the separation to stay open. So is it a purely great run route? Yeah, it is, in the respect of it's not really about route running here as much as avoiding contact so you can maintain momentum up the field. And as I said, as I go through these clips of his, I was looking back to it last year, it's just kind of all over the place as far as there being some really cool stuff all over the place. Drag routes, this is what he was almost unguardable in college on. So just a simple drag, get across the field. Not, again, this isn't going to be any amazing, not all these reps are going to be amazing reps, but just take note on these reps that everything on these, there's something different going on that he's being asked to do from the receiver position. Here's a fade ball to the back of the end zone. You've got to have a good release here. You've got to be able to get into your quickness to create separation in short spaces. Then you've got to have the hands to be able to extend there on the minimal amount of separation you're going to be able to create in that short space. And get the feet down, make the catch, 2 feet in bounds, touchdown, part of his 5 touchdowns this past season. Keep it going here. Just want to show a few of these off as far as I think it's kind of cool. Got the off-script stuff, where recognition in play that, okay, initial route isn't open, top of your screen. Initial route's not there. Sam's in trouble. Cut it back inside. Extend the play from my quarterback. Just a natural receiver, this kid. He's just naturally built to do everything you kind of need from the position. You want yak, extension of the play, work off improvisation. He can do all that stuff. And he's got legit 4.4 speed to him. Out route. Couple out routes last year. Ran him really, really crispy. You can always tell an out route's being ran really well. How do you know? Take a look at that bottom side corner on the top side there. That bottom top corner there as he's on coverage. You make the corner stumble, you've probably done a good job on your cut. See that? And all these are just his separate individual catches, but all of them doing something kind of different. Another out route here, though, that's similar. Here you get to see, again, his ability to work through a little bit of too much physicality, one could say. I don't know if this is holding or not, but I think you're kind of past 5 yards at this point. You've got both hands on either side of the player's jersey, so I'm going to say that that's probably pretty straightforward, holding there. And he latches and holds, still rips through the grip, cuts back outside, and Sam absolutely with a just beautiful throw here as far as the ball placement rolling to your left. That is a tough throw from Sam. Not easy, especially it's not clear that your receivers actually generated separation on the play. So work through contact, get to that out route. Good stuff. Not his only touchdown, of course, in that game. We've also got a go route, kind of a skinny go route here. Almost, I guess, a sub-corner route, you could say, from the slot. Wins here with the release. So what's the cool thing he's doing here? Showing you the speed. Look at the separation here. I mean, that's 3 yards of separation between him and the cornerback at that point. It doesn't get better than that. How does he make this happen? Watch his release 15 at the line of scrimmage. Bop, bop, gone. Bop, bop, gone. I mean, he smokes him like that. That's like watching an NFL player playing a college player right there. Easy to throw as Sam's going to get as far as last year goes. I don't think you're going to find very many that are going to be easier than that one. Not sure if this was the injury that initially got caused last year. This has been my theory that this might have been the one right here that caused the old ankle shin thing that he had going on. It's a pretty brutal hit. Don't know if it was this one. Just running a little bit of a kind of a soft post there. Oh, just find the hole in the zone. Takes a hard hit. So not a lot of catches last year. I understand from some people's standpoint of this, they're going to say he's not proven a lot, but keeping in mind again that the 5 touchdown receptions, the punt return touchdown, all came in a very short space of time, and that it was on, fairly limited amount of reps that he turned in that type of productivity. I think when you look at as well, the PFF scores, they show some other interesting things about this as you sort of dive into this part of it, being that when you look at the ratings and the rankings of the Seahawks wide receivers last year, of course, Jackson Smith-Njigba, number 2 in the entire NFL, just behind Puka. Puka's probably run blocking, gets him a little bit ahead on that one. And then you've got here Cooper Kupp in at, of course, 36, and then Tory Horton in there at just a little bit below where Cooper Kupp is at 70.1 on 225 offensive snaps. 23 and a half years old, so still fairly young, this kid. And what's really cool is that if you look at over on the RBLK column here, that's the run blocking. And when I separate the run blocking by who was your best rated run blocker of the wide receivers last year, Tory Horton. And keeping in mind, that's with a guy like Cooper Kupp on the roster, who's also a very good run blocker. That's with Jackson Smith improving as a run blocker last year. But it was Tory Horton by a significant margin, albeit again, sample size of snaps to a degree on this because he only got the 76 snaps, but that's still a healthy amount that he was out there being asked to run block. So you're getting a potential full meal deal wide receiver here. A guy that can run every route, can play every wide receiver position, that really has legitimate upside to his game and what he could become as a wide receiver. We are the lands that have fostered a Doug Baldwin. Let's not just get caught up on a guy's draft status and determining this is where he's got to sit. This is the box that he's got to be placed with inside. This is the limitations that we got to expect of him because of where he was drafted. I made the case earlier in the show here today. There's a reason why he was drafted where he was picked, and it had nothing to do with necessarily athletic ability or what he could bring as a wide receiver. The punt returning, potential, hell, even use of the arm, run blocking. Very excited about this guy's future. And while there is a little bit of a logjam up ahead of him, but of the point I've been making over and over again this last season has been that what really separates the Seattle Seahawks from these other teams that are getting talked about and put ahead of them or right in line with them is the depth. And not the depth in, hey, they're my guy and I like them, so I'm going to love up all of my guys. In that I don't have a Ram wide receiver that I can point to that's a Tory Horton. I don't have a 49er wide receiver that I can point to that's a Tory Horton-like player from last year for them. And I can do this at so many places for the Seattle Seahawks that goes beyond their starters, that goes beyond their difference-making players. And it's this extra added depth that is the difference-making component to this team in so many ways. And if you do have a Rashid Shaheed fall off, or not fall off, but have an injury go down, or a Cooper Kupp have an injury go down, you've got the reinforcement built in with a guy like Horton to come out there and not miss a beat. And you're a run-heavy team, so you don't even have to fall back on saying, well, he gives you a lot as far as the pass catcher, and he's really dynamic there, but boy, he can't run block worth his life. No, he'll fit in even really well in that way. Now, you might think, hey, well, you're just kind of gassing us up on this, Brandon, this is all well and good, but you're just, it's off-season talk, and there really isn't that much to this. He had a fine little run of games, but 5th-round pick. We don't know about the injuries and all that. Okay, let's see what. When asked about a comparison last year, let's see what Las Vegas Raiders head coach Clint Kubiak had to say about thinking about a comparison for Tory Horton.
The rookie that reminds you of Tory Horton at all?
Sorry, let me get these on. 1 second.
Yeah. Have you worked with the rookie that reminds you of Tory Horton at all?
Yeah. I'm not going to say his name, but he's had a really solid start to the season. Proud of Tory. Not surprised, just the kind of kid that he is, the way that his parents raised him. He just has a great attitude. He's all about work. He studies hard, and he has some great role models in that room. And it's a long season to go, and no need for Tory to get the big head, and he knows that. That's why he's here. He's just got a special character trait to him in that regard. So just going to keep pushing forward.
Revealing the player, their characteristics that they share as players?
Okay, well, Justin Jefferson was in Minnesota. He was a really good rookie, and that's rare air, so he's got a long way to go to get there.
Okay, look, I'm not trying to post up that I think that Tory Horton is going to become Justin Jefferson by any means, but I think that it does show that there is something to this kid and the talent he has and what he brings to potentially the table here long term about what he could develop to into this offense. And I'm really excited by it because he can be the guy that could potentially fill into any starting role we're going to need in the future of this offense. Heavy amount of usage to the slot, heavy amount of usage to the X. No matter what the future is going to bear out on this kid's got a lot that he potentially can then add on into the mix on it. And he fits so perfectly within this team with the skill set he brings. By having something expanded beyond a very limited little hole of a role, this team is all about the multitude of things that you can do, both defensively and offensively. So being able to play all these wide receiver positions, having upside, having a bit of that nose for the end zone, this kid's a legitimate player. And as Clint said, I think that he wouldn't be bandying about that Justin Jefferson talk lightly. I think that this team and these coaches, as they look at this guy, really had their eyes open last year because if you go back to training camp, there were 2 guys last year, rookie-wise, on both sides, one on the defensive side of the ball, one on the offensive side of the ball, that were tearing up camp. Not merely playing well, not doing okay. These were 2 guys that on a daily basis were making plays and tearing up camp, and you were hearing it from other players. We know Nicky Manwari was one of those guys. But the guy on offense was Tory Horton. So from the college to the understanding why he dropped in the draft, to then him getting here and showing he was legitimate from the jump, to before the injury struck, showing he was legitimate in all the ways that you would hope and being able to bring a lot to the table, really does to me cement a lot of confidence that this kid's going to, as we go into the future, be a factor on this team, is going to be a player on this team, and not merely as a fifth end of the roster kind of wide receiver, but I think he's going to sooner than later force his way into this starting lineup. I don't know if it'll be, I'm not saying necessarily, oh, well, this next year it's definitely happened. I'm just saying that it's going to be hard to keep him off the field if he can stay healthy. That's the big if, of course. That final college year, this first college season, it doesn't seem like the injuries are necessarily interrelated. There's somebody in me that wonders, because we don't always know the full details of these, if Seattle just kind of had the injury going on with him last year and they said, okay, well, maybe he could play through it, but then maybe it'll kind of linger still. What if we just let him kind of rest all the way through that and rest up all of what maybe it was there as far as the last bits and pieces of the prior injury there with Colorado State, and just let's rest him up, get him right 100%, and then get him back around to the other side by next year. It's one of the places I've given Seattle a lot of credit for. That's another one of the difference-making parts of this organization, is that when it comes to injuries, they have a true long-term outlook to it. It's not the cold-blooded, we're going to just cut you, who cares about you, you can't be on the field today, you're gone. Sometimes they will do the Abraham Lucas-like thing, where they will have a player that you're kind of massaging through the process of those injuries to get him right and going through their very, very dynamic medical staff to get that done. And that's what it takes for some guys. We'll see with Tory, 23 and a half years old, not a super old prospect. This kid has legitimate potential. Don't sleep on Tory Horton. Glenn Kubiak certainly wasn't last year when he was talking about him. And this is what makes this team go. Having this depth, having the X factor for players that can now come forward and become difference makers that you didn't even think you were going to have to count on. They just surprisingly happened. This is the type of stuff that allows championship teams to continue to not only remain open in that championship window in the future, but potentially even repeat. I thank you guys for watching today. If you can do me this favor, and please do hit that like button. It does help out this channel tremendously. Sorry about a little bit of the audio issues we had at the front. Got it fixed in the first couple minutes. Thanks to Megan, our main mod on the scene, always on top of things, and I really appreciate you for that. If you guys can for me as well, I want to thank the sponsor of the show, which is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the #1 sports app in the game running today. They got so many different options, so many different selections to pick and choose from. And right now you got baseball rolling in full swing, and right now you got the Mariners rolling in full swing. First place, baby, ready to cook it up. Hopefully can get these injuries back around to the other side of it and just be ripping and roaring and hot here into July, and then you can fully take advantage of them, where they're not only winning, but you're winning yourself some money by taking advantage of your home team doing that work. We've also got the seasonal picks on play. I've got my picks in with Jackson Smith over 1,324 yards and Jacoby Myers, who I think will be the #1 receiving target there with Jacksonville over 749 yards. Take advantage of these picks today. Use my code HMA, and when you do a $5 lineup, they will put $50 in your account. $5 for a $50 in your account when you use that code HMA. Terms and conditions to apply. Please do see their site for details. And yes, in the state of Washington, there are some limitations, but if you are in a casino in the state of Washington, you can use the app in full. Thank you to guys for using that code. Thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring the show. We will pop over to you guys here in the chat, see where you're at. I know I often say that we'll do just a short show, but we'll probably just do a short show today, as I'm hoping to get over and get some video work done here on the on hopefully the final Kubiak thing. It's going to take me about a year and a half to finish that thing, but we're going to get that thing done, I tell you. Baker L. Priest. It's good to see you in the house, man. He says, Brando, the secret weapon is Kupp, per Jimmy. Well, I mean, I know it's there. It's coming. It's coming from Jimmy. God bless him. I appreciate you passing that along, Banker. I live in Cope. I am the Cope. Thomas Cox, thank you for the $5 donation. I listened to the NFC West Roundtable and practically fell over hearing Jake say Seattle gets the lack of Super Bowl talk. It's one time I agreed with Jake. Yeah, I think because me and Jake have so many, feisty discussions, I think sometimes people will have a tendency to really, kind of pile back on from the Hawk fan perspective of piling a bit onto Jake a little bit. Whereas I've got to say that, I find him to be a smart football mind. And there's been a couple different occasions that you can see him being on kind of the right side of history with stuff. For instance, the Sam Darnold thing last year. He's the first guy on the roundtable to come back around from where he had been on his outlook of things far before we got to even the the second game with the Rams. He was giving space up on that. So, we'll have our disagreements, and it's really like, you let the audience kind of figure out where they find the truth to be at on that and all that stuff. But I think that he's recognizing this because he has a fair outlook on things and how he sees it, and understanding that this stuff has gotten pretty overboard with the talk of everybody kind of else but Seattle at times on this. And, it's one the players are noticing as well. We're hearing it from them and their discussion, because they're hearing this too. It has been a little bit strange. I've often said that I understand completely Seattle not getting much notoriety if they're just merely a playoff team, even because Northwest and East Coast League and all that stuff's true. But I had also said, yeah, but when we were the Legion of Boom team and winning Super Bowls literally and going back to back, we were in the forefront of media. We were a little bit more at the center of discussion. And that has not been the case this offseason. And it goes in tandem with talk that can sometimes be then you don't hear a lot of your team being talked about in good manners. And then you're also hearing this talk about how this other team is the best thing that's ever been made and created. And then how also last year, that same team that's now the best thing that's ever been created also should have really have won it. And it was really your just luck of the Irish or something that got you. It becomes a bit to where, yeah, that the frustration goes off of it, just sort of heating up a bit by bit on that one, Thomas. But props to Jake for being honest on that one. And again, props to Jake for, being a guy that I know is smartly sees things. I think we sometimes disagree about our outlooks on our teams. That's going to happen, but we have a lot of agreement too as well. So, yeah, props to him on that one, man. That's all I got to say on that. Just good on Jake recognizing it. And at the end of the day, it's no real big deal. It sucks. It'd be cool to get a little bit more notoriety. I'd certainly love to see these players celebrated further. But as I've also said, there may be a benefit to this, Thomas, where this leads to teams kind of slightly overlooking you, because they're just like, well, everyone's telling us they were a fluke last year. So, I mean, how seriously really should we take them? Maybe I'm being a bit hopeful with that one. Thomas, thank you for the $5 donation as well. The Double Dip brother. You were awesome. Thirsty as hell today. He says, I think players like Horton, Mills, Arroyo become starter level players or star level players. It could surprise the Rams in December. It's the fun part of the NFL. It can also be the maddening part of the NFL is you have a player that'll rise and you think, okay, he's getting ready to go on a long run. It's like, well, he was just here and he was out. It was kind of a flash situation. You're sort of Thomas Rawls types or Chris Carson types. But then you also get those guys that kind of develop and come up that you were thinking like we'd had hope, and the team had told us that they had a top 50 grade on this guy, and the team told us that they had a first round grade on that guy. And you'd hope that wasn't the team gassing you up a little bit on that, Thomas. Is sometimes they probably can with that stuff, but these guys all have legitimate talent. They have their questions all individually about, whether or not that talent's going to come to full bloom, but there is no doubt about the actual talent itself, which on some guys many guys to my outlook of it that are picked into day 3, I think that is something that you do say a lot of, where you go, yeah, the ceiling does have a bit of limitation and it's going to maybe take us some time to work to that ceiling. But these are guys that have the ceiling much more raised up. They're not hitting their head on it already. And it makes it really exciting, because this team is already so strong and good that if you get a development of merely 2 of those 3 guys that you mentioned, Thomas, if you get that development of those 2 guys giving you that level of play, that level of ability, starter or all-star otherwise, this team becomes, it starts to feel like almost impossible to stop. You just give the Seahawks another Pro Bowler. You give the Seahawks another equivalent defensive tackle on the line to a Leonard Williams or a Byron Murphy. That's pretty devastating. Thank you though, Thomas. Appreciate you, man. Jimmy heard Banker's cry. The Ram call into the night, Banker. Jimmy, thank you for the $2 donation. It's good to see you in the house, brother. It says, desperate hopes. Bunch of scrubs and frauds. Laughing my ass off. Always glad to put a smile on your face, Jimmy. Thomas, thank you for the $5. Jimmy is the biggest fraud here. What will his excuse be when the Rams choke in December? I'm guessing it's going to be awful quiet. I'm guessing Jimmy's cope talk will be very, very, very stifled, very, very quieted. I'm guessing he'll just kind of shrink into the darkness, just kind of, he'll do the Homer Simpson meme into the into the, whatever the hell that shit, those bushes. That'll be Jimmy with one last donation, go. As he goes into the forest there. I appreciate you. Thank you, Thomas, for the triple stack donation, bro. You're awesome. Always very kind of you, man. Oiler Titan says he's a touchdown specialist. Buddy Ryan once said that about Chris Carter, is that all he does is catch touchdowns. It's one of the great famous quotes from Buddy Ryan, and one that he definitely was, chewing on. And I think with Buddy, to give him some credit with that, of course, Chris had some substance issues, I believe, coming into the league initially. And so you were getting a guy that was kind of giving you this inconsistency onto that end of it, and then maybe having some off the field stuff that you didn't love in addition to it. But it was a very hilarious thing for Buddy to say. And certainly with Tory, man, all he was doing last year was catching touchdowns. He had like a 50% touchdown to catch rate. Brandon Lloyd's a good comparison. Ooh, boy, if he could become Brandon Lloyd, that'd be pretty cool. Lloyd had some of the best circus catches of all time. Byron says, kiss the ring, Jimmy. Kiss the ring. It's good to see industry work. Don't feed the trolls, boys and girls. Chris says we need no respect or notoriety. We won without it. Let the sheep have it. They need attention, apparently. Agreed, man. I'll just keep stacking bowls, do it quietly in the middle of the night, and that's fine by me. The trophies look the same in the trophy room, and as we've said many times throughout this offseason, the team that tends to be the offseason, not just tends to be, almost every single time, as the offseason hype behind them and is being given so much acclaim, tends to be the one that sort of pitters out when it's all said and done and we get to the NFL season. That's just how the history does tend to play out. Like Jimmy just got his lungs. Thomas says, thank you for the $5, Thomas. 100% truth is Seattle has McDonald and the Rams fans can't stand it. Rams have Myles Garrett. Seattle has the best defensive head coach in the NFL. It's hard to deny it at this point with this guy. I mean, you look at Mike McDonald and you talk about things not given a lot of respect to, or not even respect to, just not really thought about. And that is that this guy has gone to now 3 different stops and not just turned around the defenses, but turned those defenses into dominant forms and almost did it instantaneously. I mean, Baltimore took him 10 games and he had that thing rolling from Wink Martindale, goes out to Michigan and not only gets Michigan on board with a whole new defense from what they were running prior, but then gets a whole staff trained up at the very same time to run it so that he can then leave to go back to Baltimore then to become the defensive head coach or defensive coordinator. Now he comes to Seattle, inherits the Carroll's guys, inherits basically guys built for Carroll's system, the 4-3 defense, takes him right on, just fits him right into his defense like it's not nothing, gets a couple of parts here and there that are added into the mix to make it work right and true, and has the thing humming to the point of, again, not just turning around the defense into year 2, but making it the best defense in the National Football League in the second year of him in the house with the roster he inherited by and large. If that's not evidence for a guy having a brilliant football mind, I don't know what is. And Sean McVay's got a lot of this stuff he brings to the offensive side. And, that's the part of this that makes it so fun. But I think that when you hear Kyle Shanahan on the pre-Super Bowl being interviewed and asked what, he thinks about this defense and how to stop him, and he's like, I didn't score the last 2 times I played against him, so I'm probably the last guy to ask. I think that McDonald's got a lot of these coaches confounded. And, quite frankly, I think a lot of these quote unquote brilliant offensive minds in recent years have at times been able to lean back upon the fact that the defenses are so simplistic in their nature at times, and how they've been in, not in the last couple of years, but in, most of NFL history, defenses are what you see is what you get. And maybe we'll hit you with the surprise blitz, but, we're not going to flip coverages pre to post snap, for instance. You're going to have guys pretty well slotted to roles. You're going to be able to do a lot of predicting pre to post snap offensively of what they're going to do in order to know how to attack right and true and correct. And so, that's starting to change now. The free lunch is kind of over, Thomas. And Mike is one of those guys heralding this kind of defense that's going to be on the back of offenses to try to find some adjustments. And there's not going to be easy adjustments to it because it's got many layers of complexity. And Mike just continues, it feels like, to want to add more onto it. He's not just trying to, I'm going to invent my scheme and my system, and then that's just going to be the cookie cutter of what I run every year. I think you're going to see expansion. I think you're going to see wrinkles. I think you're going to see evolution and development because he's already showed that. Even with how he runs the system here to how he ran it with the Ravens. I can see some measurable differences. So, yeah, well said on your part, man. And I would be nervous by it too. A guy that's this good out the box, if he can be already this good when he's this green, how dangerous is he going to be when he's got actual wisdom, when he's actually got years under his belt, when he's been through the fire and the flames? I wonder. Jimmy with another $2 donation. Can't wait to see Ghost Boy Sammy throwing 5 picks. Laughing my ass off. Well, I think Sammy's actually thrown 5 picks ever, but yeah, we'll see. I think he conquered his ghosts and demons last year, Jimmy. I think he did. I think he gets, when he raises the Super Bowl Lombardi, that's probably about a point in time you finally go, okay, he's probably overcome that stuff. But I get it. Some of y'all can't let it go. Mick, hey, Brandon, do you think that it's funny that even on his way out, Verse still has us on his mind? That's honestly such a flex. Well, thank you for mentioning that, because I did think this was very funny. Ram fans are talking all about, a lot of Ram fans are coming onto my chat, or I see them online talking about how, Seahawks are obsessed with us. Seahawks are just obsessed with us. Seahawks can't stop being obsessed with us. They're just so obsessed with us. Yet, I hear nothing but Ram fans talking about us, time of the play, their coaches trying to have rule changes that they push through deep into the year. You've got their players over and over again on the media spouting off, talking about the Hawks. I hate the Hawk, all the Hawks. It seems like we're kind of on their mind. And then you even have Jared Verse on his way out of town, heading to Cleveland, telling his guys, make sure you beat the Seahawks. Who's in whose head? And really, at the end of the day, the true fact of this is, the bottom line of it is that both are in both heads. Nobody's over this. It's a great rivalry. So let's stop with the oh, it's in my head, it's in your head. No, 2 best teams in the NFL should be in each other's head. The greatest threat that exists between them and getting the Lombardi Trophy should be in each other's head. You shouldn't not be thinking about your greatest threat. It's like going to Cold War and America really shouldn't be thinking about Russia. Who needs to be thinking about that? That'd be ridiculous, right? So same thing here. We're in our Cold War. The Rams are Russia. We're America. They're dirty communists. But this is how it is. So let's dump all this stupid ass talk about somebody being above this. Somehow there's a fan base that's we're not thinking about that at all. With it is now. Look, it is true when it comes to the, our guys.
We did not care.
Sure enough, yes, we do not care. But it does show that it goes both ways. And again, just to illustrate this a little bit more further as well, you have make sure you beat the Seahawks. by Jared Verse on his final message to his Ram teammates. And then this is in an Instagram by Adam Schefter. Adam Schefter posted this, and then there's Instagram reactions by Leonard Williams with the crying face, laughing emoji. And then Eamon Wari for the win as he's got SpongeBob going into his little vault there as he's crying. Oh, it's too good, man. This has been the best offseason. I'll tell you what, it really has. It's been so good. So good. But I do think it's very funny, Mick. And it's been like, come on, guys. We all know, everyone knows what's up here. We all know what's up. Baker, Brando, and Jimmy meet up to Brando find out Jimmy's 4'6". How does Brando react? It all makes sense. You know what I mean? He's got the Jason mask on, I think, right? But it was actually Chucky all along, Banker. You know what I mean? Then it all starts to make sense, right? Chucky's the ultimate troll. How you doing, Maze? Feed me. Thank you for 28 months as a Hawks Nest member. With all the World Cups that have been played in America so far, Seattle's getting more praise from tourists, the most praise from tourists. Just gives me hope on Seahawks' future. Yeah, it's such a beautiful city. I mean, it's the reason they call it the Emerald City. There's those teams out there there's those cities out there that'll be like, Detroit Motor City, don't look at it. Like they'll be given a name that's like, not in reference to the beauty of the city. It'll be like in reference to how we're such hard workers, and like, that's cool too. There's something to be prideful about that, but we've got a sparkling, beautiful city, and the stadium being where it is, and downtown Seattle, and then being in the midst of all that action downtown, and all the bars and the restaurants and what's going on down there, and you get on the boardwalk. It's just such a very cool scene. And to be there in the summertime and when it's at its sparkling best, it is very cool. Why also, if they ever are going to need to do another stadium of any sort, the stadiums have got to be down there. We can't do this thing that's part of the new trend of moving this out. We're going to put the Seattle Stadium in Spokane. It's like, let's keep it home, right? Keep it home. Keep it in the city. Is Jimmy McVeigh's burner account? It might be. Jimmy with the $2 donation. How are Buzzards dominant when we score at will? I mean, you were down 32-16 before the refs bailed you out with the Woolen penalty, man. We would have blown the doors off you in that final game if not for the ref show there. But dominant, we lost our 3 collective games last year by 9 points. We blew out the team in the Super Bowl. That's pretty dominant. I don't think I'm going to convince you, though, Jimmy. Mitch, Rams were tough games, but you also lost to Falcons and Panthers, who we did, in fact, beat that ass. Laughing out loud, we beat y'all twice when it mattered most. Mitch is spitting facts to you there, Jimmy. I mean, he's really spitting facts. I can't argue with what he's saying to you, man. They can dance all you want around it. Can't get away from that. You can call it copes, and again, dude, like coping on what? My Super Bowl championship? It's the strangest use of the word cope I've ever heard in my life. Mick says, Brandon, do you think a team might actually give up a first for Sorsby, like a team with a late first-round pick if they had an aging quarterback? I mean, it's kind of sounds like it's kind of capturing your attention, a little bit like it's capturing mine, because it's such an interesting situation. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm just excusing Sorsby away as far as, gambling, whatever. I'm not. I think that just falls in line of that's off-field stuff. That's, you got to do your due diligence as a team. And as I often say with this, Mick, the off-field character stuff is stuff that I rarely try to delve too much into unless I've got something really that I like, know inherently is broken about something within the person individually, which we rarely do. So if we just put in, what he is as a player and what he could become as a player, and then you think, like you say, as a team that's a playoff team, that's a team that, may have even a quarterback that they like quite a bit, but that they're also sitting there thinking, yeah, but if, we've got this guy ready to make. So let's go through a couple of these, Mick, because I think you're on to something here a little bit. I haven't done a deep enough evaluation of Sorsby. I've done like 2 games. I've done the highlight package. So that's a little bit of, I've put the foot in the water, but I haven't gone fully in. But like, you got Mahomes coming off the injury there with Kansas City. I don't think you're looking to move Mahomes necessarily, but having that as a guy that's behind him as a maybe not the worst case, maybe late first. Okay. Well, there, maybe that'd be a little dutchy for them. So you'd go, okay, well, Cincinnati. I mean, if there's a chance that Burrow's talked to you and said, if we're not going to win this year, we want to move, I want you to move me at that point. I don't want to be here anymore. Then now you've got something there. Tampa Bay's got Baker Mayfield trying to demand $60 million a year. You want to maybe get yourself, this is where we can kind of like go down the list, and there's some tangible teams that you go, yeah, I think I might be picking more later on in that first round. And if that's the case, Detroit. I mean, there's been some soft talk with Detroit of, looking with Jared Goff. I don't think they signed him to a deal, did they? Oh, wow. Yeah. So it's there. He's there through 2028, essentially off the extension. So yeah, there still is that where they could look to move off of him too. So it's like, I kind of do think that there's some real possibilities of some teams that could come in here and maybe potentially do that, is thinking that they'll be a playoff team and they're getting now a first round quarterback, and that they can kind of talk themselves into it being a steal. Cause kind of like I said on the roundtable last night, Sorsby's really a second round graded kind of guy by the tape that he's put out there off of the sample size I've kind of seen of him with, as I mentioned, the 2 games and the highlights, but that he is a guy that these quarterbacks that can be in that place elevate themselves up. I mean, I had, JJ McCarthy, second, third round grade, and he got elevated up into the first round. Now, should he have been? That's another argument. Michael Penix, similarly going into his final year there at UW, with his past history of the ACL, but able to elevate him there with that final year and just how well he played. So I see a team potentially doing this kind of math. I'm not saying that I predict it would happen, but it would not shock me in the least if you saw one of these type of teams do that. Trap Cat. I think the Rams' lack of depth in the roster might be their downfall this season. Having great players is great, but you need good players for rotation when those key players get tired. This is so very true, Trap Cat. I can't give it enough exclamation points of truth. And that reason being is just that this is what the NFL's taught us recently. Injuries are a fact of life, and that there are those rare teams, as you get to the end of the year, they'll be like, they've lost the least amount of games due to injury than any team in the NFL. There are those teams that do exist, but you don't want to really count on yourself being those teams, because the general rule of thumb is that we're going to suffer our share of injuries, and we've got to have the depth built in to sustain around that. And there are teams that address that. There are teams that really take heed of that, and there are teams that don't. And I think the Alaric Jackson situation really puts a big alarm bell there for the Rams team right now, as far as like that should be going off in a major way. You go, okay, Alaric Jackson went down. Now what do we do? Jake's instantaneously not like, I've got trust and faith in my backup to get back out there and be good to go. He's instantaneously out there talking about wanting to go for a left tackle that just wanted to retire, whose play's been depreciating for quite a good period of time, because he knows that there's just no good answers out there, and you can't go get good answers out there at this point. It's why you've got to get the depth addressed in the offseason in March and in April in your drafts, because you try to do it at this time and it's too late. The players are not available out there to build that depth at this point. It's got to be done with actually some value. And I think it is the place that the Rams have kind of, as you say there, it could be, I think if there is I don't think there's a lot of ways to the Rams' downfall this year. But I think that those ways that are very specific, Stafford's health, the depth, they are major downfall possibilities for this team, to where it's not just merely it causes you to being a little bit away from the Super Bowl, but really causes you to, be facing a similar kind of uphill battle like you were last year going into the playoffs, because you just lose a couple too many games because you just didn't have it reinforced enough. Polly, the more I think about the price pick, the more I like it. Low tread. John can pick a running back. I have faith. Yeah, it opened your eyes with John when he really talks about the fact that he feels like his best position that he drafts is running back. And I think that there's something to this. I know there is with me, where there's certainly positions I look at that I have a harder time, finding my assessment point on whether or not I really feel good about buying. I mean, offensive linemen can sometimes be a struggle for me a little bit. But there are positions that you feel really good about when you're watching them and being able to, I think pass rusher is one that I have a lot of faith in my ability to look at. And John feels like that with running back. And Price is a guy, really good fit to the system. John's got a good track record of picking running backs. And I would estimate he's going to be a really good fit here, Paulie. And again, set up for a lot of success here. A lot of success. How you doing, Fro? Good to see you in the house. So Jimmy, Megan can definitely take it. She's been in my mod here for many years, and she's taken a ton of the abuse from people that come in a little bit like yourself, hurling around insults. And I've actually asked Megan through the years that we don't ban and we allow for people to come in and have talk. And while I do appreciate the donations and support on it, we're not going at my mod. Do you understand? So like, you want to go at me all day. You want to go on my team, go with the team all day. I don't care about that. Megan's in here doing work and doing what I've asked her to do because Jimmy, you don't seem to respect it because you don't want to have any type of discussion whatsoever. You're not interested in the least of having any kind of back and forth. And I've tried many times over, and I understand. I've been on this rodeo many times, so I understand the like and the ways, and that this is just how some people are. It's sad. It's very depressing in certain degrees that folks like yourself don't have that open-mindedness to want to actually have fun discussion because I think it's there to be had. But you gain nothing by going after somebody as kind as Megan is in my chat, and somebody's done so much good work for me in my channel, and I don't really appreciate it. So you can dial this back a bit and understand now that we're trying to have discussion with you, and you don't even need to donate. I just like to have people part of this community that, like I've said, I think it's better served by having more outside voices on the end, but it becomes impossible to have those outside voices if you're going to lead with disrespect. That accomplishes nothing. Feels good for you to say, but it doesn't accomplish something. We're actually trying to have good. As you can hear in this chat around your talk, we're trying to have a good discussion. So, I mean, you can or you can't, but I've kind of let you know on this one now, man. So I don't want to see that again. Ever. Yeah, Megan's not come to you, Jimmy. She's asked you like I have to try to get the discussion in a place that's healthy, and you don't want to be there. I don't know what you're hoping to do. What do you think this is all going to bring about? You think you're going to convince me of what you think at this point by just hammering the same thing over and over? Anybody in the chat? You're not. We're getting very close, Jimmy. Very close. No, you're throwing personal insults at people in my mod in my chat who's in here out of her own free time, out of a generosity of her time to help this show go. And you don't want to have discussion, which I don't understand. How about you address that, Jimmy? Why are you such a child that you can't have a talk without having to resort to insults on almost every single post? Like, what are you in pain? Are you hurt? Where did the bad man touch you? Like, let's get into it here. Let me become your psychologist. Something deeply seems to hurt you. But again, don't go at my mod. I'm not going to warn you again. You're out of here if I see it again. Not timeout. You're gone. Xavier Doom. So if the Hawks are America and the Rams are Russia, are the Niners Iran? Yes. Because like the close proximity of Russia to Iran, so too do we have the 49ers close proximity to the 49ers. Abdi, big up to Leo and Nikki Manoir. Their players and their fan base are obsessed with us. Hell yeah, man. Seahawks had a Saudi video ranking the best stadiums in the NFL. Seattle was 8th. It's pretty impressive, too, if they are that high, because there's been more than 8 stadiums, I think, built around the National Football League since Lumen. We did it right. It is really cool to hear the Europeans come in though and be so impressed by the stadiums, the environment, and they seem to be really, really impressed by what they're seeing out there, and that's especially our hometown. You beam with pride on that type of stuff a little bit. What's happening with the Bears? Yeah, the Seahawks hopefully won't do it. Oh, the Bears moving to Indiana. Yeah, well, in Kansas City too, right? I mean, the Chiefs are going to end up in Kansas, not Missouri. So it's getting a little strange where this is opening up, and the Niners did this with Santa Clara. I mean, it's just teams are starting to kind of move into places where it's really not the city itself that they're calling themselves, and it's kind of weird. And the Bears being in Indiana is very strange. I know the politics in Chicago are there's like a century of dirty politics there that make things like probably building stadiums almost impossible. But woof. Ooh, Sorsby to Eagles, Mick. You might. God, you stole a better one than I came up with. Even I had some good ones, but that might be even better. You got Roseman this offseason dancing. I mean, playing this weird public relations game with the owner where he's publicly shaming basically Hurts in order to get this soft draw off of him because the owner supposedly loves Hurts and Roseman supposedly does not. So you go to the Eagles and you go, we're picking late first anyway. We've got a future first round pick in 2028. So if we want to package 2 first round picks for 2028 to get back into 2027 and somehow or another, then we can just always do that if we really need to. I mean, Mick, it's not the craziest thing I ever heard. I don't think he's going to go for a first rounder either, Abdi. I don't. And I think seconds on it, but you do wonder with how this could go in that there are a lot of teams right now that need quarterbacks. This was a weaker draft for quarterbacks. I know a lot of teams are already angling themselves for a QB into next year a little bit, but that also could be a bit of a precursor for teams looking at that saying, well, look, we're not going to be in top 5. We're not going to be in top 7. We're going to be out of the realm to be able to get these top quarterbacks. So do we have to be more proactive about that? Do we have to strike now? We have an opportunity to get a guy because that guy won't be there next year. And we might have the need for that then. We have the need right now. We might even have more of a need then. And so, urgency and desperation can sometimes draw this stuff out a little bit. And it is a bit of a game where you have a lot of teams competing potentially for this guy's services. And we have seen high picks in the past. We've seen even our own Seahawks give up a first round pick in supplemental drafts in the past, albeit that was for a Heisman Award winner, but it was also for a linebacker, Abdi, in that way. But it is interesting to me if I'm thinking about it from a team being a playoff team, if you know that the second round pick is probably going to be the cost, you go, well, is it worthwhile for us where are we at with our QB? Is our guy really at the spot? If I'm the Cowboys with Dak, and I'm starting to look around the road to where we can get the potential of Dak's contract getting out from under that. Do I think about that? I think there's some interesting discussions going on out there in the NFL right now in regards to this. But I do think that you're right. It probably does come down to a second round thing. The first rounder for a guy that has the gambling thing. If the gambling thing wasn't in play, then that might allow him to be elevated up, but that's probably going to be enough to push it down. Thomas, thank you for the $5 donation. Appreciate you for that, Thomas. Greg said there's a local owner that fans will like to buy the Hawks. He said that the NFL owners have been wanting him. What your opinion plus bully to? You might have to, what you mean on the bully to? It seems like it's Ballmer, Thomas, to me, is what that feels what's being inferred here. Because if I look at the NFL and say, who would they have want here as much as anybody else to bring in, he just seems like the name that just stands out, that'd be the guy that that would really move the needle for them for a variety of reasons. So he seems to be the one that I go back to over and over again on this one that I just seems to make too much sense. But this whole process has been so shadowy. Even yesterday, I think you had another name popped up kind of out that somebody else that was thinking about coming in and putting a bid in there. So it has been one where this has been a pretty thorough process of them trying to figure it out. And they've done a very good cloak and dagger of not being able to lead us into who's going to be the new person. Because I think it's Ballmer. That would be who I'd be betting on it to be Thomas. But it also wouldn't surprise me if some outside the box left field thing, just because they had not let anything really leak out. It's been very closed process. I'm going to guess, though, that this thing's going to probably be within the next couple of weeks. We're going to get an answer on this one. It seems like they're wanting to get this sale culminated and done by the time they get to the start of the season. I appreciate you, though, Thomas. Thank you for all your support, brother. Mitch, Brando, do you think the Seahawks are going to visit the Jalen Milroe read option package this year? It was so bad last year, but they wanted to. A lot of talk out there from some folks out there have been watching the OTAs and practice field that they're not seeing Jalen, taking really steps forward here. There's been some interceptions and OTAs and just maybe not quite still coming forward here in his game. And that's okay. There's still time for him, but there may be also a bit of a ticking time here where Seattle's got to really think about whether or not they want to have the 3 quarterbacks on the active roster again, and whether or not that's how they want to roll, especially if they're not using the Milroe read option package or the specialist package. And I think when you have a quarterback playing top 10 like Sam Darnold is, I think it really minimizes the need to have this sort of specialized package. If you're getting sort of middle of the road play from the quarterback position, that's something else. But when Sam's doing what he's doing and playing very efficiently and not turning the ball, you just got to, I think, kind of roll with what you got at that point. I think you're bringing out that Milroe package. It's when you're really just trying to cobble an offense together. So I don't think that they will. I think they'll probably put it on ice unless the offense finds some stagnation. But we also need to see Milroe take some steps forward here in his development. And it's the clock. I think some people are saying the clock's ticking. I think there still is more time on this, but Seattle may look at this in a way where it's like, they kind of see enough too. We'll see. Yeah, Megan is the mod of the year. Appreciate you, Megan. Sorry for having to deal with the stuff on that. Thomas is based on what Corbin said. I have doubt Milroe will not work out. I'm all for trading him and drafting a quarterback in the 2nd round and 3rd round and re-signing Sam for another deal at the team price. Yeah, I think that's probably where this is probably trending to, especially if this, you're always going to give him 2 years. And if you get through this 2nd year and you're like, it's not coming along, I think you at that point have to just be like, it's not going to come along. I'm not going to give the guy 4 years, 3 years, right? So if you've given him 2 years on the bench to learn and be in the same system, and it's just some guys, and unfortunately with Jalen, it's the part that I had always hoped to being wrong about with looking at him on draft day and my assessment of him. I never said I wanted him not work out. I want him to work out. I want to be wrong in my assessment of him. But some of why you make that assessment of the time in a guy like Milroe, and even with his work ethic and even with as much as he beat the grindstone a bit, it's a really hard position to develop the skills he needs to develop from college to the pros. Some of that stuff kind of needs to be a little bit more ready-made in there a bit, I think. But he's a test case. We'll see if he can continue to round in his shape. And if you're a hard worker, man, you can break through. And if I was talking to Jalen, I'd just say keep chipping away. Don't listen to the noise. But it's going to take you working your butt off on this. You're really got to ground up this one from the ground up. That's what I meant. Todd, you can't say rising star to a wide receiver that can't stay healthy. Talk about Homer hyperbole. I like Tory, but he's skinny receiver that's been hurt the past 2 years in college and pros. He has a lot to prove. Well, I think that's fair. I do think that it's a little unfair to characterize him simply because the last 2 years of 2 separate injuries, that's a guy that can't stay healthy, when the prior 2 years to that, he put up 2,000-yard seasons in college. So, footballs can be random in that way. Football can be a sport where you have a 2-year bad problem with, a couple injuries hit you and strike you in a way, and that pops up. I don't know that that's necessarily an indicator then that you are injury prone per se. We'll, see with time with that. Putting up the production he did in the short amount of time he did was really impressive. And if you really look, Todd, to the track record of rookie wide receivers coming in like that, especially when we talk about a fifth round wide receiver or a day 3 wide receiver coming in and giving you that productivity. It's very rare. And I'd offer that when you do see some of that productivity, a la Doug Baldwin in his rookie year, that there tends to be some sustainability to that. There tends to be some flowers that will grow from those roots. So I'm not saying that he will be a star, but I do think he has star potential to him. And as I posted in the press conference video earlier in the show today, Todd, I know you weren't here on necessarily for that, but Clint Kubiak himself last year was comparing him to Justin Jefferson. And I think Clint's got a pretty good idea about wide receivers and wouldn't be throwing around that comparison flippantly, especially for a guy, like you say, that's just a skinny guy that's injury prone. Banker, thank you for the $2 donation, Banker. How does Brando's top 10 NFL players ever look? How does my top 10 NFL players ever look? You'll have to expand if you mean this is like my top 10 all-time best players. And you don't have to put a donation on that, Banker. If you just put in the chat what you mean by that. If you mean top 10, all my top 10 list of all-time NFL players, or Brandon's top 10 NFL players ever look. Yeah, I think you mean like my list. I can give you a list if that's what you mean. But if you can expand if you can on that one. Banker might take Jimmy's Maddie's 4-6. Yeah, I know, a lot of anger, man. It's like, bro, I get it. You love your team. You love your team, Banker. You know what I mean? But like, I think that football's got a lot of trash talk. I get that. If people that are in here know, I'll do my trash talk here and there a little bit. But at the end of the day, I more love just football discussion and talking ball, talking shop. Especially got two great teams, two teams that are doing so many things right. And that's to me to be more celebrated than it is to try to ground down and tear down and rip apart. It's more about like, let's celebrate it, enjoy it, and just sit back and take it in. Yeah, some people are just impossible to have discussions with. I've been able to turn a lot of people, and that's why I've done this with him, is not because he's donated, because we've had a lot of people, and Megan can attest to this, that have come in hot and fiery and are like, this is the standard, is just be toxic. And then they're like, oh, wait, you guys don't do that here. Why just, oh, okay. Oh, well, maybe we'll just chill out. You know what I mean? So that's what we got with, I think he was asking for the list. Banker, if you were asking for the list, I'll give you that. We got for sure Rice and Largent for me are going to be on there. Lawrence Taylor would have to be on there. No doubt about that. Probably have to put Ray Lewis on there. Obviously, Tom Brady. You got to put Tom in there. That's like 6. Deion Sanders. 7. Deacon Jones. Jim Brown. Be my 9-10. We gotta Banker, we gotta include a couple guys from the old guard in there, you know what I mean? I think that would probably be where I'd go. That's a tough list. Top 10 is tough. Surprisingly, though, I think I'd only have one quarterback on my top 10 list. I think that the number 2, there's too many arguments in there for number 2. I think there's a couple guys you could kind of... Abdi, John Schneider loves running backs. Even heard the ex-Packers legend general manager who works with John say Schneider loves drafting running backs. That's his specialty. I've heard. Yeah, I was here. I heard that note too. It kind of perked my ears up as well. I was like, Trav Cat. So if the Rams are Russia and the 49ers are Iran, where did the Cardinals fall? Cardinals are Africa. They're deep in the Congo. or Greenland. One of the two. I can't decide. That's fair, Todd. I just wanted to do the show because I find it notable, and I understand if you're not in the same place of it. But just knowing track record history of how hard it is for rookie receivers and guys to come in and do what he did, and how impressive it was. I think too, Todd, you're underselling a little bit of the fact that if that final year in college he hadn't have been injured, and we don't know what the injury is, we don't know whether it seems that he's gotten over it 100%. It's not some catastrophic injury. And again, last year's was a shin, which was not the issue that he had at Colorado State. If he puts up 1,000-yard season, a third 1,000-yard season in a row at Colorado State, and he still posted 350 in an injury-riddled final year, that's going to be a guy that's going to be a high second-round pick and even a first-round pick. So, I mean, I can get that you've got worries and trepidations about his injuries, but the talent is true on it. And it is also why when I mention like a guy like Clint Kubiak, so it's just not me speaking about, well, here's just my opinion on it. Here's actually an offensive coordinator and a guy that's seen a lot of wide receivers and kind of probably knows what he's talking about when it comes to receivers. I'm very excited for Sheed too. And it may be that Tory Horton doesn't have a way of having an approach to getting on the field because it's stacked up in front of him as far as the depth chart goes with the top three guys you have ahead of him. But if injuries strike, which they do happen to do, and it happened even last year to us, and we know with Cooper Kupp, he stayed healthy last year, but he's been a guy that's had his share of injuries in recent years. Calling upon this guy and having a guy that can be this dynamic coming off the bench to me is worth speaking about and worth getting excited about and shouldn't be undersold. I don't think he just had an whatever year. I think 5 touchdowns receiving in that short amount of time, the punt return touchdown, and knowing that this stuff tracks back to what he was in college and what he would have been as a prospect if healthy in merely that final year. But I appreciate where you're coming from, man. I believe in what I'm saying on this, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I ain't trying to gas you up artificially. I truly believe in it and what I'm saying and try to make my case. Catalyst says that's an interesting idea, but wouldn't the Eagles need to eat a ton for Hurts? All that buried void money and all? Probably, yeah. I mean, is there a way that they can find to creatively get off of it because they can make a trade occur to where they're moving Hurts to another team and then the other team eats some of the money, but then they don't have to, the team that trades for Hurts doesn't have to give up any draft capital to do it, where they're like relieving somewhat of what they're, just takes one team to get creative with that. It also could be catalyst too, that they just go, I've always wondered with the situation on the void year thing, if not, or how he just picks one particular year and he's like, okay, we're just going to eat it for 1 year, where essentially, we know we're going to have the void year money, all stuff kind of come up and hit us hard. And if we can just kind of get ourselves through the other side of that, then we can have an opportunity at that point to flip this around quickly. I've wondered if he's going to do that as a possibility too. But yeah, it would be complicated making it happen. Some of this could also be catalyst that you bring Sorsby in for this year. You're not looking to have him traded this year and Hurts. You're more thinking of it in next year, when you get a little bit closer on that contract. And I think by next year, they start to get to a point that they can actually get off of the deal if they want to do so. Trap Cat, no. Cardinals could be North Korea. I mean, they both have the same thing in common with being quiet. And forcing people to work for them who don't want to. Yeah, Reggie was when I was on there too, man. You can't put Joe Namath on there, Seahawk Daddy. Come on now. You can't put Joe Namath. You can't put Joey Namath on there. He slipped that one in, Seahawks Daddy. Right between Rice and White, huh? I agree, Todd. I wouldn't give up the pick for him either on it. The gambling thing is a big warning sign. But the thing that we know about with these teams, man, is that they are as hungry and desperate for quarterbacks as any position in the sport. And you get them one like this, they can be one where they can actually get potential value. Not that it's likely to happen, but that there's potential value there, that it just gets them frothing at the mouth to want to try to go make it go. Yeah, you don't have to cut Milroe. You just let this thing kind of play out. You know, you just let you let him to continue to develop. You knew this was going to be a long journey, or even if a year ahead from when he was drafted, you know, and we can't expect this to be refined down. Just keep him working on it. Keep him grinding. See if he can break through at that point. Watch the owner be Ronald McDonald. Could Jody Allen buy the team for herself if she chose to? I don't think so. It's again, in those details, it's hard to know for sure because we don't know. But my understanding of it is that all of these assets have got to be liquidated to the Paul G. Allen Trust, and then they go to charitable organizations. And I don't think by charitable organizations, they mean Jody Allen's pocket. I'm sure she's going to get a tidy little sum, but we are also talking about a team that's going to sell for like $10+ billion. Probably not that tidy of a sum, would be my guess. Melinda Gates is intriguing to me. I like a little Melinda Jody combination. Joseph B. I love that Nicky Manwari is learning from different positions. I really think he can be elite. It's very interesting hearing him about coming off the edge. And look, he's got the size, and got a 4.3 speed coming off the edge at his size is going to be tough for a tackle to deal with. I'll tell you that. And very cool. The more you can do. And in this defense, the more versatile a piece you can be, the more dynamic McDonald can make this defense pre to post snap in his disguising and what he changes up. And you love the thought process of being able to attack in that kind of manner. So I love seeing Nick out there working on that type of stuff and adding to his game. Kind of reminds me like the old basketball days, you know, where it used to be you'd go into the gym in the off season and you'd work on a shot. You know, Magic Johnson would be out there working on his hook shot that he's trying to learn off of Kareem. And you know, you'd get, you know, better as a finisher or better with your back to the basket, better with hitting 3-point. You try to find something you can work on, add on to your game a little bit. It's very cool. Banker caught it too. Todd says, play Melrose when we're up in the second half, 30 points against Zona versus the Saints and the Commanders. That might be the way to go with this one. Joe made the Super Bowl. One of the best arms and toughest men to ever play the sport. I'll give you that, but top 10 all time. He might have more interceptions than touchdowns thrown in his career. Mick, they're saying Oots is playing more. Hold on, you're saying it. Where's my Oots button? Oots, 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 Oots. Love the finish. Oots is playing more physical in practice. Love to hear it. Love to see it. This guy's got some real potential as a blocker up front, and just being a guy that can just erase these linebackers in the hole. They're not used to these fullbacks. Everybody's doing 12 personnel. If you can not only be a team that can run with commitment to having a fullback that can be a lead blocker, but then also have a dynamic one who's a real, I'm going to clear the road for you, buddy, kind of guy. These kind of linebackers now, they've gotten lighter than ever, and they're not used to dealing with that type of contact as much as ever. I'm watching even now college tape on some of these linebackers in college, man, and you'd just be surprised at how much the defensive systems are set up on some of these guys to just allow them to really kind of almost have a heavy amount of snaps where they're avoiding any kind of second level blocks. And that's where getting that fullback downhill is kind of a cool concept. But yeah, he's got potential. I didn't include him on my list of guys we were talking about earlier in the show, Mick, being Arroyo and Mills and Horton, but he is kind of in that mix of a guy that could develop and be a real factor on this team, especially Fleury's background with San Francisco, who's been so heavy into the 21 personnel recently. They don't do as much 12 because they like to do a little bit more of the 21. Abdi, Brandon, question with Eagles signing AJ Epinesa, pass rusher, and Saints re-sign Cam Jordan. Who do you think follows Fowler's? Who do you think follows Fowler? Because remember, supposedly going to be a second pass rusher, including Fowler, that supposedly joined. Probably, I think it's going to be Clowney. I think the team it makes so much sense from both camps on this for it to be Clowney. There is a subtle need for Seattle with some of the age you have on the roster of the edge rushers, albeit that it's deep, but with the age that's there, getting a fifth guy certainly couldn't hurt. And then I just think he's got the track record with Mike, and from his standpoint, Seattle's going to have the money to give him as much as any team out there in the league can give him right now on a 1-year deal. You don't have to put multi-year commitment to bringing a guy like Clowney in here. I just think that just kind of rounds out the pass rush just right. You really don't need to do anything else at that point. At least not at the moment. Banker winning a bowl for the Jets alone is Hall of Fame worthy. That's facts. Yeah, you can send him off. I don't care. I can live without $2 donations if somebody's just going to come in and be doing like this. We've tried. Mays, Brando, do you think McIntosh makes the team this year? I don't. I think there's a good chance he's on the practice squad, but I don't think he makes the team. I just think he's had a couple of injuries here, and it's just the hill's too high to climb, and the team's stacked too well up the running backs. The only real hope, I think, for him to make the roster would be that Charbonnet takes the 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks into the season to be really ready to go. Does feel like George Holani's kind of ascended into his spot as sort of that fourth guy, and you brought the Wilson kid in, who I think the team's going to like quite a bit for the physical running style he brings. And so it's unfortunate with him because McIntosh has got some real talent to him. But yeah. Don't straw man me, bro. Okay, bro. Tory's too skinny, and this is the NFL, not CSU. I liked his production, but he's the guy who is always dinged up. It's a new ailment every week. We shall see. Just not excited. I feel you with that. I mean, you're bringing up that you thought I was trying to make this hyperbole, and I truly believe this in the talent he's being was what I was coming back to you as. I don't know about straw manning you. I don't know what I was straw manning as far as it goes on this goes. You said you just doubled down on the ailment thing every week. And I think he had an injury. I even showed on this show where I think the injury probably came on in the Steelers game, that he had the initial ankle thing that got hit and it just persisted, and that he was playing through it at times and then they shut him down. Now, nobody really knows on anything on that injury, but the way that you're painting it, a new ailment every week, that's not been my understanding of that he was having a new injury every week. And when I pointed back to the college time where he had the 2,000-yard year and you didn't push back against anything I just said on, if instead in that final college season, the one injury he had that kept him out throughout the college year, it wasn't dinged up every week, that you had the singular injury that kept you out through the college season, which happens to players and it doesn't make you injury prone, he would have been a second-round pick and possibly even a late first-round pick. And that speaks to there being true talent in the guy. I don't expect you not to get excited about him. You don't have to be hyped at him. You can be more hyped about Shaheed. I'm just simply going at the points in the fact that you were kind of pushing up a little bit that there's not any talent here, that there's nothing to get excited about, or almost that he didn't do anything that was really worthy of note or praise last year that could be hearkening into the future of being good. So maybe we're misunderstanding each other on this a little bit, but I don't know where I guess let's start, Todd, and trying to get to an understanding point. You're painting that the injury stuff comes up. One injury in the final year of his college career there in Colorado State. The other 2 years, 1,000-yard seasons, pretty darn healthy, pretty darn productive. Last year, healthy throughout training camp. After they got him back in there, tearing up training camp, came out in the season, was really productive, and then had the single injury. They shut him down after they made the Shaheed trade. So I think they had also a reason to know that maybe he could have still played, but let's just shut him down and get him right. Organization tends to be pretty conservative with injuries. Doesn't then mean that guy's super injury prone all the time. Sometimes it just means that they have more of a far-sighted approach to injuries itself. But yeah, I'd love to see where our common ground can maybe be found on this one, because I'm not quite understanding where you're getting to as far as determining the injury side. Skinny? Well, there's been a lot of wide receivers that are skinny that have been able to maintain and go really fine and do perfectly well in this league. Skinny doesn't necessarily mean you're going to become hyper injury prone or something, or that you can't, last in this league. He's a really hard worker based off of everything we hear. He's a grinder. He gets after it. So it's not going to be a lack of that holds him back in this way. But again, I'm not trying to get you to the point where you've got to agree with me. But again, too, you sort of labeled it as hyperbole and came in kind of hot. So it's like, I'm going to push back against that, right, Todd? Sean says, Brando, is there a chance Bud Clark gets on the field without injury this year? Probably as your dime cornerback. But then the question would become, Sean, how often do teams go to 4 wide receivers with such a drive within the NFL right now to go more to the 12 personnel, 13 personnel, heavier formations are kind of the en vogue thing. And so that probably means that's going to come at the expense of the 4 wide receiver looks. But it will probably be between him and, Neal as to who's that 4th guy, but he's probably the better suited guy because Neal's more of an outside guy, and that the 4th corner in the dime package is kind of like the 2nd slot that you're on that inside point. So I think that's the role they'll try to find him to. And that's what I would try to shoot for if I was the coaching staff, and that I would try to put him into something to where here's a little limited role, but you can really just master this role within this specific defense. And if we need you for other stuff, we'll bring you out there if there is that injury. But that's kind of the ideal for me with a rookie. Definitely Reggie White, Joe Montana were 2 names I thought about too with it. Corey, I do think that Milrose should get at least 1 start in the preseason. We see more in games than OTAs. Oh, I'm with you 100% here, Corey. I'd like to see him pretty much start like 2.5 games. Give Sam maybe a one drive, give Locke 2 drives, and then give Milroe everything else. He needs development, and he needs to have some time on the field that he's not going to get here in season to do this. And the preseason becomes the only time to do that. And I did kind of feel like even last year, Corey, they didn't quite give him enough last year. Like there could have been even more reps and snaps to give him here. And I think that becomes a bit of a necessity. And I think that I'm not impatient with him all. I'm not looking to move off him at all. It is more reacting to just we're hearing some kerfuffle this last week about a little bit of lack of development. Is the clock ticking? I don't think it should be. I think the process was always you wanted to give the 2 full years before you even made an assessment on Milroe. You give him the 2 years, and then you get to that end of that 2-year point. You go, okay, where are we at with this guy? What is he, where's he gotten on as far as that development goes? Has there been an advancement? Is he stifled? And then you've got to make, I think, more of that choice then. But we're only into still year 1, basically. GSN, Sheed, Horton, Kupp on the field at once. Barner would be freaking scary. That would be pretty scary. Probably Barner's off the field if you're going 4. But it'd be cool nonetheless if you could pull it off. Have a good one, Thomas. Thank you for all your support today, brother. Appreciate you for that, man. Thomas Joe name is like having Eli Manning. Kind of. Joe Montana was the top reason the NFL and NFL merged. He set the market for players being paid and won the first Super Bowl. Oh, he definitely got a great career, man. He did. The top 10? If he hadn't torn his freaking knee into shredded mincemeat out at Alabama, he might have had a chance at that one. Yeah, the Super Bowl ring's so cool, Trap Cat. The fact that they can make it into like a necklace is pretty tight. The video of Gray Zabel was funny. He put on a Super Bowl ring on the ring finger and said he was married to the game. He did. That was awesome. Clowney was good as a Seahawk. He was. Had an abdominal injury that got him at the end of the year, but his production became stifled because there was nobody else on that line to provide any pass rush. So, these are back in the old Carroll days. We're not blitzing. It's the front 4 that's got to generate pressure. And so when you have offenses that have 5-man protections and you're constantly running 4-man, and you've got not only 5-man protections, but you typically have a back who can chip. They're going to swing the chip. They're going to swing the double team Clowney's way that year. And the stats back this up as far as during that time period, not just in Seattle, but as he was running through the league at different spots, he was being doubled as high a rate as anybody in the sport because he just didn't tend to have very much help on the other side of him. And if you get him the help, pull the double teams away, you get that much more of an effective player from him and what he can bring. And what's nice about Mike McDonald's defense is I think it's the alignment of Clowney. along with the stack boxes and simulated pressures, make it very hard to be able to dedicate any kind of those resources over his way in that manner. Not that he's going to be the same player he was, but it's one where it's hard with Clowney just to look at that production of just that year, because there's kind of something extra, at play for what stifled a little bit more of the production from him. What's up, me? Good to see the house. Got to be a huge wide receiver in this NFL, Brando. Got to be big. You need that meat. Horton needs to get on that bench press. I want to see some big old thick thighs this year, just coming back just like a thoroughbred. Have a good one there, Megan. Appreciate you. Sorry about the deal there with homie. Trapcat, Tory was on fire in the Commanders game. If we can see more of that, then there could be good stuff to look forward to. Indeed, he was. And I think it is definitely a bit of sample size in what we got from him because of the injuries and what kind of went on with that team. But boy, he gave you some moments last year. And if he can become that guy and really can ascend within this receiving core, I'm not talking about being like best receiver in the sport, but like, look, we're living in a sport right now where your top 2 rated wide receivers by PFF last year were Puka Nacua, that was taken in the 5th round, and Jackson Smith-Njigba, that was taken with the 20th overall pick in the 1st round. Wide receivers and where they're taken doesn't necessarily determine, where you're going to be as a pro. And there's been guys taken in these rounds. I just mentioned Puka Nacua alone. There's guys sometimes picking the spot that can be these unearthed diamonds in the rough that can become real players. I wonder if Horton is still as fast as he was. I'm sure he is. He's a 4.4 guy on tape. Marino was like Namath without 2.0 without the ring. Big arm, no mobility. Both Italians. Most success was early in his career. Yeah, boy, Marino, he had so many pads and extra armor on those lower legs. By the end, he was all blocky on his lower legs. Well, both those guys, as good as they were throwers, you just knew, man, if what they could have been if they were still had some of their legs and mobility to utilize them. The Marino was super mobile even coming out, but yeah, functional. I like that, though. That's a good comparison. Yeah, I have a hard time seeing Mac make the team. It does feel more like Wilson, Holani, Price, and Charbonnet seems like he's making good progress. Seahawks Daddy, Clowney's the first player to force a trade to the Seahawks. He showed out, indeed. Abdi Clowney coming back to Seattle to join us for the 2nd time. Nuts, don't mind that. Him, Dante Fowler, Chenna, and Derek, DeMarcus Lawrence. That'd be fun rotation. That'd be a hell of a rotation, man. You talk about feeling like you can go 100 miles an hour on every rep because your backup can come out there and spell you and you go get a rest and the coaches aren't going to be looking at you with some deranged look like, why aren't you on the field right now? But like, look, yeah, make sure you got 100% your gas when you get back out there. We want you guys going 100 miles an hour every rep. Oh, we lost Todd on that, man. Sorry, Todd. I was hoping to have some back and forth with you, Todd. I was not looking at sticking on disagreement, man. So I don't mind having a little bit of back and forth on this thing with the Tory. Where did AJ Brown rank in that ranking? All time? He's not an all-time guy. Who's up for contract extensions next year? The list would be as follows. You're looking at, we got to get Byron Murphy's going to be probably a 4-year, $27 million per year deal. Barner will be probably 4-year, $13. We got the Derek Hall deal done. Ernest Jones will be up next as well for having to decide on that. That was only a 3-year extension. Jason Myers is in the final year of his contract. And then HHG, we have Leonard Williams. All of those we've got to kind of figure out. Corey, the thing that worries me most, B, is our depth at cornerback. Yeah, I mean, you need some guys to develop, right? You have question marks. I think what's nice is that when you do look at the question marks this year, Corey, as opposed to last year, where, you did feel good about Job with Woolen, you kind of you were a little bit in that box of chocolates place with Woolen where you go, I don't know exactly what I'm going to get week in, week out. Job was solid though, right? And Witherspoon and Wari were what they were, but then behind them, it was kind of a question on, okay, Nehemiah Pritchett, who's our extra corner. We ended up with Deion Kendrick at one point for a cup of coffee on the team. Now you are able to kind of throw out here now where, okay, we've got the two guys you drafted in Neal and in Andre Fuller. You have as well now Nehemiah Pritchett coming back, and he actually showed some true development last year. You've gone for a guy that's a former first-round pick in Igbenogany, who, can continue to maybe develop and has had a lot of really good returns as far as what we're hearing about his work ethic and what they're seeing from him this offseason. I think you've done a better job to build up the conditions for that depth to be better. It doesn't mean that you're not still on it, Corey, with it still potentially being a problem, because the development's not there. It's not as certain as other positions are with the depth, like you have with tight end, for instance, or maybe even wide receiver. But it is, I think, a little bit better than it's been recently. And I do think it's also maybe a position where if it does get a little bit dicey, one that's a little bit more easier to go and then find if you have to at the trade deadline to find functionality. Where's AJ Brown in the PFF ranking? Oh, he is. He would be ranked 15th. Where is he? Wait, why does it have him 15th? But then, it's the snap counts are. That's why. Maybe? Okay, so it's got him at 80, 15th. Oh, that's why. So, yeah, he's right there. 15th. DeAndre Hopkins was a little bit better rated. Parker Washington, a little bit better rated. Parker Washington had kind of a low-key good year for Jacksonville. That guy's sneaky. Tyreek Hill above him. Watson above him. Just below, you've got Justin Jefferson, Flourney, Theo Uvis, T. Higgins, Michael Bandy, Zay Flowers. Still solidly graded. Doesn't look like he's too interested in run blocking anymore. I don't know if run blocking is his thing anymore. He's kind of over it. Turn Sharpenar's needs an Andy. Now that the nest is grown, Brandon goes through the fat chat faster. I have to most days because it's otherwise we'll be 17 hours in. But it's kind of off season too. Most people are kind of out a little bit on this. They're doing their summer stuff, which is understandable. Nameless commercials were hilarious. Didn't they have him wearing ladies' pantyhose in one of them? Like they had him shave his legs and wear pantyhose. That's a man very comfortable in his masculinity at that time. Cap, that's one big reason I hope we don't bring Sharps back too soon. Give him enough time to heal so we don't re-injure or activate it right off the bat. Yeah, I think you've got to be careful with these ACL injuries because they're ones that allow now with medical science to return these players back within a year or less than a year. But at the same point in time, you have soft tissue injuries and other stuff that starts to come out as the leg has to kind of relearn how it's going to be mobile and, it's a little changed. So you're going to need to, give him that time for that to happen. I love that about this team. I think it's something they do very different from other NFL teams. I think there's a cold-blooded approach a lot of NFL teams have where they get him back out there. Just get him back out there. And if he gets broken for good, we'll toss him to the garbage heap and we'll get ourselves a new one. I think Seattle takes a bit of a different approach on this one. And it's one more of trying to foster into the long term. Look at like Uchenna Nwosu's situation, for instance. I think a lot of teams would have come back to Uchenna even the last offseason and been like, all right, dude, look, you had the dirty hit, but you're broken. You ain't coming back right. It's going to take so long to get back at this point. We're good. But they stuck with him. And they've had a process to trying to get him back in. And now if he comes back this year and he's back to old Uchenna way, you go, oh, it just took him that amount of time. Some of these injuries just aren't solved in just that quick span, even with all the medical breakthroughs that we've had. Oh, yeah, Hawks Nest. I like that you respond to comments like this. It shows the type of engagement not many podcasters do with their audience. By the way, I hope Jimmy keeps paying you to cope, laughing out loud. Well, his days of paying me to cope are going to be ending when he goes after my mod. So I don't like that. I've asked him not to do that before, but he's not big on listening. He's got some definite comprehension issues here going on. You know what I mean? But I love chat with you guys. It's a lot of fun doing this show. It is, a real pleasure and an honor to get to do this. It is one where you guys could be watching anything, you could be checking out anybody, but you're hanging here with me. And I really appreciate it, but I love the discussion too. And even with the folks that I disagree with, Todd, you out there still, it's like, I like the disagreement. And I always say, let's have some back and forth with this and try to find a closer place to the truth if we can, and maybe not. And maybe if not that, we can at least laugh or something. Of course, but I do trust us. We would not have let go Woolen if we didn't think we could be okay. Yeah. And I think with Woolen, they liked a lot of what he brought, but there's a buy-in factor and there's a type of spirit that seems to be what McDonald's looking for in players. And he wants that hardwired in. And of course, that was one of the things with Woolen that we always kind of wondered if was really hardwired in him. And I think that the team's lack of interest in bringing him back, considering the price he signed for, kind of does show some of that, I think, level of concern that they had. But this is also a system that's pretty well suited to not be as... It's one that's a system that wants a cornerback with a lot of versatility, play man, play zone, play off coverage, be able to play press. But it is also one that doesn't tend to put you necessarily on these islands, right, Corey? Because you're one of the least blitzing teams in the National Football League. That then does also help to accommodate the position and making it easier to play in general terms. So that's another part of this that could weigh in here. And, who knows, Corey? Maybe there's the old Marlon Humphrey option. Maybe he's our in case of fire, break the Marlon glass. And then we'll go that route with it. Will A.J. Brown get 100-plus yards in the first game of the season? Yes, but only because Drake May has 47 passing attempts. And A.J. Brown gets targeted 21 times. That's the only reason. Prediction of the Australia game. I have been not checking out the World Cup, Banker. I'm sorry. I'm not. Oh, you mean the Niners and the... I'm sure you're hearing, Banker. There's a lot of push right now about the Niners making a run at Crosby. And they're sitting on $79 million of cap space right now. Would you imagine how crazy that game would look at that point if we got both Crosby and Garrett playing in the same freaking game going head to head on that one? That'd be nuts. I mean, if there's no Alaric Jackson there, I think that's troublesome because you play the Niners in week 15, you play the Niners in week 1, and I've been hammering this on the roundtable, Banker, as we suffered from this last year. You're taking on two different animals. And the animal that we took on in week 1 with Fred Warner flying around like the best middle linebacker in the sport and Nick Bosa playing like a top end edge, in wreck and shop, Michael Williams being, Michael Williams and Alfred Collins up front being immovable forces in the run game. So they get you into being a pass happy attack. But the Rams are just so utterly strong. And, Garrett brought into the mix and being able to go at that offensive line of the Niners, which I think does have some failings. I probably would give your Rams the nod on this one, but it feels a lot like similar to me, Banker, of like that first 49er Ram game last year in LA, where it feels like one that could be very much back and forth and really, really tight. Because you're just getting him in the full. I mean, Dre Greenlaw back there too. You're getting them at their full health, at their strongest. So why it kind of sucks getting that game, not just in the fact that it's to Australia, but getting that game itself as the first game of the year. I didn't like it last year. Like, can we just wait to play them? Like, give me a Kittle injury and a, we get over to that side of it. I'll give you guys the nod. It's a 3-point win though. And yeah, Leo Williams might be extended here by training camp too. I've seen a few people mention that. I think, yeah, Chris, I think it should get, it sounds like they're working that. It sounds like John's kind of softly working on that and the Witherspoon thing, and that these things seem to be something that's going to come around here soon. GB, they'd be porting Black Ops 1 and 2 for modern consoles in July at some point. Ooh, that sounds interesting. I'll have to get in on that. Vegas has the Cards the longest shot to win the Super Bowl. I agree with that. That's why I said they need to lean into this tank fully. Don't be spending more money. Don't be doing stupid stuff. Just lean into the tank, land the best quarterback in what should be a very good quarterback draft. This is the way for the Cardinals. This is the way for that team out of Greenland. Yeah, McDonald doesn't rush anybody back. And it's cool because it's a notable thing because it goes so counter to what we know about football and what football has been inherently for decades and decades, where these coaches, it was the old cliche trope of the doctor who's in the coach's pocket, and whatever the coach tells the doctor's going to get across to the player. It's that, and the medical staff in Seattle seems to operate differently. And that's not the proper path for us to go. And rushing the player back on the field is not really ultimately what's best for the team. Let's get him right and let's get him healthy. Fully. Abdi, Brandon, do you think we re-sign Jason Myers, or will we draft one, or will we trade for a kicker? It's kind of open-ended right now, I think, a little bit. The problem becomes if Jason Myers comes back and has another year that's similar to last year, why can't he come back to Seattle and then dictate that he should be the highest paid kicker in the sport? And now you're talking real money, $9-10 million per year for a kicker. I think that there's a place where John's happy to pay a kicker a high amount of money and make him one of the highest paid kickers in the sport, but I don't know if he wants to make the guy the highest paid kicker in the sport for a position that's tends to be very fluctuating. And then also with Jason, he's not a 25-year-old cat anymore. This is a guy getting into his mid-30s, and kickers I know can kick until they're long in the gray of the beard. But you do kind of wonder on that, like between the cost, between the age, is it better at that point in time to be more looking for an alternative option, even if it is just a trade for a guy that's valid and certain and been in the league, and rather than drafting a guy? I like the thought of drafting the best kicker, but that tends to be the one that is a big-time crapshoot. We've seen a variety of teams that have tried to take that approach, and it has blown up in their faces, including the Niners, who did a third-round pick on a kicker a couple of years ago for the best kicker in the draft, and he fell right on his face. So hard to say on that one, Abdi. The price, when I looked at what he's making right now and then what it's going to project out to what he would make on the next contract, it makes me a little reticent if I'm John. I have a hard time swallowing the $10 million a year for the 34 or 35-year-old guy. I'm like, I don't know. Brian, I kind of wish more sports medicine would figure out something the players can do to avoid ACLs or Achilles tears, because it's taking down so many players and they're often not themselves afterward. No, it's the scariest injuries that exist out there for the reasons you mentioned, that they are injuries that they take something from you. And even with the medical advances that have improved your ability to come back from them, it always does feel that way. I always remember back Tyler Lockett talking a couple of years ago about the fact that after he came back off the broken leg, that he was never the same, never had the same speed. I've heard players talk about the fact that they get even a serious hamstring injury, like a real serious one, and that it can rob you of some of your speed. Like you can feel like you lost a little bit of your juice from it, weirdly. even after it heals up. But yeah, they have figured out how to make players stronger and bigger, but they have not figured out how to offset the imbalances that exist with ligaments and, things that have a finite amount of strength that then have to keep the stabilization of the bones together and stuff like that. And that's the part that, like you say, they're trying to figure it out. Is it extra supplements? Is there some piece of equipment we can put on these guys to allow for it? I mean, hell, with the Achilles things, half of those you watch, the guys aren't even doing anything necessarily super athletic. They happen to step back on one thing and pop goes the weasel. It's such a scary injury. It freaks me out. I like playing my basketball, but and especially as I get older, I'm just like, no. Oh my gosh. Hawks Eye, Bryce in the house with a $100 donation. You are too kind, Bryce. You've dropped big time donations before, and another big one here, man. Thank you so much, brother. Very, 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 very kind of you, Bryce. And folks, please do over here. We got the Hawks Eye. In fact, the Syndicate will be on. I'm not going to be able to get on tomorrow night with the Syndicate, but the Syndicate will be cooked up tomorrow night there. So do get your notifications posted up for that show tomorrow over on their side of it, as they'll be rip-roaring over there and talking Hawks and talking roster and looking at a couple of different items over there. But as well, do please get subbed up to Bryce's channel, the Hawks Eye podcast with Bryce Coots here on YouTube. He does great work, coach, knows this game backward and forward. A lot of respect for Bryce, and really appreciate all of your support too, Bryce. You're too kind, brother, with that big dono drop. He says, hey, Brando, I hope Horton can become the perfect third wide receiver to JSN and Shaheed, but I'm worried about his durability. Keep up the great work, brother. The season is almost here, but don't forget to take some time to enjoy this small break for us creators. Go Hawks. Love you, brother. Hey, much love out to you too, brother. You know that, man. It's an honor, and I have a lot of fun, working with you guys. And it's been really a cool thing with this channel as it's developed to be able to have these kind of relationships with you guys, doing what we do, knowing we all go through together, and being able to experience it together as opposed to just out here on our own little islands here, kind of going through the ups and downs as you do, and venturing into this territory, as it were, on that. And, you share where we had a Todd in here earlier that was talking a little bit about this. And I think that the health injury stuff is valid. And I think that there may be something even deeper potentially at play with Tory that we don't know about, right? Like there's a reason that a guy that's this productive, that has this good a tape in college, would fall all the way into the 5th round, because he played more in his final year than Jackson Smith and Jigba did in his final year. Jackson played 2 games and he was out. He was done, and so, there may be something on the medical that just says this guy is never going to quite get right. And that's, I will say that we don't know either way on that one, and that it could be either way on that. I think too that it is 2 separate injuries that he sustained from Colorado State to the shin injury that he sustained last year. I don't know for sure on this. Get your thoughts on this, Bryce. But my take on this is I think that the injury happened right here. This is where I think he got the ankle injury. And I think it's, number one, it's a valid injury in that, like, that isn't just him like running in place and he injures himself. Like the guy torpedoes his ankles out from under him, where I don't even think this is a thin issue. Like if this is Jackson Smith or Cooper Kupp that gets smacked like that low, it's not a dirty hit, but it's kind of like, dude, really? I mean, I know you're trying to not hit him in the head, but my take on this, I think he got injured in that game. And I think that he was dealing with it beyond that and trying to play through that and being the tough soldier working through that. But I do think that it was a pretty valid injury, but it's also the separate injury. And that in football, there are those times where you have back-to-back years with separate injuries, but then I don't know that makes you injury prone. And this is, again, notwithstanding whatever the medical MRIs told Seattle, just these 2 injuries and looking at them in just kind of a vacuum on this, Bryce, and looking at them as just like, okay, they happened. Are they connected? No. Are they valid injuries? Yeah, they're pretty valid. Was there something representative about him that they're going to be chronic, or that he's, got no cartilage left in his knee? No, nothing that we've heard of. And he does have a track record of sustained ability of playing in those 2 years prior to that last year in Colorado State, where he put up back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. And so he was able to avoid the injury bug through those years and be really mightily productive. So it is something that, there is a little bit of, we don't know, on this for sure with how it could go. And we'll see what the durability holding up, but the talent is true there. And if he is through the durability woods and he's gotten that figured out, the kid's got top-notch talent, Bryce. And, X, Z, slot, top-end punt returner, had 3 punt return touchdowns in his college career, in addition to the 95 Seahawk record that he set last year with the 95-yard return that he had in the Saints game. So it's a valid concern. It is. I do have a little bit of that confidence in it that I think some others may not have with it, because I think that these are not injuries that are connected, and I don't think he's necessarily injury prone per se, but you never know. And indeed, we're going to be taking things pretty easy here over the next, about month or so here, folks, as far as the live stream shows. We'll still be doing plenty of them kind of mixed in a little bit, but it's not going to be necessarily to the degree or to the length as we get up into the season to try to catch my breath and get myself rejuvenated for what is going to be a very, very crazy NFL year. We've got, I was counting off the other day on it, and I think I've got it set up right now to where we'll be doing like 7 shows at least, or something, 7 or 8 shows a week. Got 2 roundtable shows, Syndicate B&B, weekly roundup, game day, and me and you, Bryce, will be doing some game breakdowns too. So it's going to be behind enemy lines. We got a lot set up this year. It's going to be a really, really fun year, and I'm really looking forward to working with you guys over here on the Syndicate, as that's been going really great. So please do, folks. Please do. Get sub up over there to Hawk's Eye, the Hawk's Eye podcast here on YouTube. And thank you to you, Bryce. Love you, brother. Appreciate you, man. And kick ass tomorrow, you guys over there on that Syndicate. Coach Coots in the house, bringing it. Oh, thank you, man, Bryce. You're an inspiration to me too, man. It's been great to see you doing what you're doing out there. You had to break off your other channel and restart again. I can think of nothing more harder when you understand too, just about how tough it is, bringing yourself back from 0 to 1,000 on those subscribers. That's the toughest crawl when you're a channel in this YouTube hemisphere. And Bryce had to do it back to back in that way. Didn't complain, didn't bitch, didn't moan. Got to work this last year, put that good work in, and he's got that channel rip roaring out there, and it's really good to see, man. And I'm going to look forward to just watching you just grow all that much more this year, Bryce, man. You and all the rest of the folk we got there with Dan as well. Indeed, Tory Horton can't be a weapon if he can't get on the field. That's true. Defend the pendant. Abdi, Brandon, do you think we re-signed Jason Myers 2 last season? He made the most kicks in the league. He's a free agent. Yeah, it's gonna be hard, man. I mean, it's hard for me if I'm John, because it's 9 to 10 million. I think it just gets a little bit too pricey at that point for where his age is at. But I mean, if he goes out there and has another year, this is why you probably don't do the extension now. You let him have the year, and then you see where it lands at that point. And if he has another year like he did, maybe it becomes impossible not to. But I would be probably pretty hesitant with all the contracts you're going to start to have on the books. It's one thing when you're paying Myers top of the market money and you don't have the contracts that you're going to have across the board here. But in the future, we're going to have to find places on this roster where we can go a little bit less inexpensive. Not that we can't pay a kicker high mark, but maybe $6 million instead of $10 million. Something like that. Oh, yo, Hawk's Nest. Hey, Brandon, is it an understatement that this coming season is a big one for Sammy D? No. I mean, I think I could make the argument last season was even more, because he's been established now with back-to-back years, and he's a Super Bowl champion, and that's going to earn you goodwill, even for a guy like him that sometimes gets chastised for the early part of his career and what he was. So I think last year was more of like, okay, now you got to go to a new team. Now you're going to a new system. Now you got everybody saying that you're just the same old Sam. No matter what you showed last year, you're just the same old dude. That type of talk and that type of outlook, that type of unsteadiness, that type of lack of comfort for where he was going, that's all out the door now. And I think that takes a bit of that pressure off to a degree. Part of why I think he'll be operating with a little bit more confidence, and why as well you'll get a better version of Sam. Because think about it from a mental state. You go to this new team. You got all these people telling you that the Rams got your number. We got all these people telling you that you're mentally deficient. You got all these people telling you that you see same old Sam. Sam seeing ghosts. Sam seeing ghosts. So ghost. See him ghost. Going to collapse on himself. Going to give the game away. See, he'll always give the game away. You hear that incessantly, and then the team that you won 14 games with throws you away and says, "Yeah, we're good." And then you go to this new team, like, and then you're operating probably a little tight, right? You're like, man, I don't want them to think that I'm that guy that everybody's saying that I'm going to be that guy of. And so well, then you verse to the other side where it's like, I've got their trust and faith. I've got their confidence. How does that allow me to play as a player differently? I feel like it just lets you be that much more looser and free. Baker says, so are we thinking LaFleur will be a 2-year coach, tank this year, struggle with a rookie quarterback next year, replaced after 2 seasons? You just want him back in LA. You don't have any faith in Shivalhaus? I got to feel like the Cardinals would be pretty dumb in this situation if they're looking at this if we're going to let him go in 2 years. I would shake my head at that from a Cardinal perspective. It fits to the type. To your point, Banker, this is what the Cardinals do. This is why the Cardinals are bad. This is why the Cardinals can't get right, is that there is no, like, let's have faith and let this develop thing. But there's no way you see him coming in this year and in this division finding success. And now you're going to go put him, like you say, and I think it's very likely that you go and you now put him with a rookie quarterback next year. You can't expect him to have success with that either. So you're going to look for improvement and you're going to want to see steps of progress, but you've got to be patient here from a Cardinal perspective. And if just because of the reason that you haven't been patient in the last few head coaches you've gone through there. They like to go through their head coaches and their quarterbacks, Banker, which is really not a good approach franchise-wise. Mixes Crosby and Garrett in this division would make this division even nastier. This would be a generational division if it isn't already. Too bad the Cardinals are still held hostage by a career backup. It's the dragon meme, Mick. You got the badass dragon, then you got the one looking cross-eyed, fire breathing out of just one nostril. That's the Cardinals. Like, one of these is not like the others. And I would be kind of dismayed and annoyed, but also just like shaking my head with a smile if the Niners got Crosby. Because it would be just kind of, but of course. But of course, in this division, nothing stands pat. Everybody's got to drive to the ultimate. And I just kind of, maybe I should think otherwise, but I just kind of appreciate about this division that it's this competitive, that it's this hard driving versus some of these other divisions in this sport where these teams are just kind of like yawning every year and like, who are we going to sign this year? Do we want to do anything this year? Are we just going to, no, we're going to hang. All right, let's just hang. So I feel about the rest of the divisions of this sport. We're just chilling. We'll get back at it next year. Stem cell could be the way, man. You touch on it. That's the thing. Maybe not even 30 to 50 years. I mean, they're getting into it now even. It's that would be the one that's an interesting one. Trap Cat, man, there was a lot of hamstring injuries last season. They were just piling up one after another every week. Yeah. Things get tight, man. I think a lot of it too is that you have problem with the kind of the modern player a little bit. And some of this comes up and look, I can attest to this. I'm going through this myself right now. Not that I'm an athlete, but still trying to be at an old ass age that I am. You sit, you're playing video games. Now you're going to go out there and do something athletic, and your body's kind of gets tight and the core gets a little tightened up. And then it's kind of easy for things to then get pulled off a little bit versus if you were kind of constantly active and then going to work out, so to speak, And I think a lot of these guys kind of are just sort of sitting on the couch and it leads to some of this. Fro, this is Jacoby's first and probably only chance with a little leverage to get paid. Yeah, Thug's kind of backing you up on this thesis in the sense I don't blame Jacoby. Why take the hits for $3 million more than you will make if they just cut you? He can make the rest up as a backup somewhere. And so I both get your guys' points are good ones, and I don't have a problem with, in one respect, with Jacoby saying, look, like I say, this is the only time I'm ever going to chance to get any extra money here. I think that there's just two things that from a tactical present, and it's a tactical decision by Jacoby to do this. There's just two problems I have with this tactically, that there's better outcomes for this for Jacoby on this. That doesn't have to be him driving this way. Number one, the Cardinals are in a position to tank, and that like Jacoby being there and their starting quarterback doesn't really improve their chances of tanking. In fact, it actually marginally improves them from being able to be away from the number one pick. It takes them a little bit away from getting that number one overall quarterback. And so when you talk about giving them now a reason to pivot off of you, be it a cut or be it a trade, well, that's maybe not going to be what's best for you. Maybe you don't necessarily get traded to a place where you're even a starter, but you're going to a place where the starting job is a little bit murky. You know, the Browns kind of situation, not that I'd expect he'd go there, but kind of like that. And so, you know, that's not going to be good for him. And he's not getting any more money to the team that he's traded to at that point. Then that team has all the leverage over him. So it's like, that's a real possibility this could go that way. Now you're not even starting. But then let's just also take it through, like, let's say you get through next year and you're playing pretty good football and there's an injury into week 1 or 2 out there in the sport to a team that's got a really good quarterback, but doesn't have necessarily a really good backup. You know, the Chargers have Justin Herbert go down and you go, hey, Chargers reach out to the Cardinals and say, will you move us Jacoby? And now he gets to go onto a team and have a run and be on a good team and to be able to be looking at his best. And then now what kind of contract is available to you if you go and you do that? So all these are risks and rolls of the dice. And I'm not blaming him for necessarily holding out. I just don't know that he's got a lot of leverage here really. And I don't know that this doesn't end out in just a worse place or position for him as the situation goes. But who knows? Maybe they come to some middle ground there where they can kind of put some incentives in this and don't necessarily give them extra money, but if you do this, you do that, then you'll hit these markers. If I'm the Cardinals, I don't see why I would give him any more money. I can't do it. Limited challenge. You know your franchise is dirt when you go, your freaking Brissett's holding out. Yeah, it's a definite example of this is what we're talking about, right? Channel life, like it is. That is borderline dirty on Horton. Yeah, he went low in a way that players don't tend to appreciate. And that stuff has gotten guys ACL snapped and it probably cracked the bone on the front of his ankle. But it is also like Banker says, you can't go high, you got to go low. That's the part where I can't go on to fully saying it's a dirty hit because what do you expect these defenders to do? You can't ask them to hit some strike zone running full speed that's going to be like this small. You got to pick a lane. It's high or low. Yeah, I agree on that. Hard Knock reviews? Oh yeah. Well, we're doing some reaction to Hard Knocks for sure. Illumination Channel Live. Thanks, Brandon, for not taking no shit off the Rams contingent on the round table. Hey man, we got to go in there with our sword and shield, all of us in that way. But that's the fun of it. And I think it's part of what makes that channel really, really, really unique. If you guys haven't, we just crossed 10,000 subscribers over on the NFC West Roundtable. It's going really great over there. And I love working with all those guys. And it's one I really appreciate because it's like we do here in the channel where, look, we can get hot and we can get intense and we can get at each other, but we're always going at the context of the argument itself. We're trying to debate our points and what we think about we're not going personally at somebody. We're not attacking. It's all unnecessary to do that. And those guys understand that and get that. And it really does allow for the debate and the back and forth, I think, to just flow freely and hopefully make it more entertaining then because of that. But thank you, Illumination. I love doing it, man. And we're going to do Roundtable. We'll be doing 2 shows a week this year. So I don't know if it's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday. That's where we're kind of trying to lock in on. But we're going to be doing 2 shows a week this year on the Roundtable. Really looking forward to that expansion as that channel's just really taken off. Chris says that's got to be a rule break. That's got to be a rule. A kicker can't make 4 times the amount of your backup quarterback. Laughing out loud. That starts getting to that extra 0 on that kicker per year, man. And you're going, I mean, I value special teams. Oh, yeah. Hawksness, I was referring to Sam playing to get a possible extension. I guess maybe it's more a big season for John Schneider and what he would pay Sam later. That's a good point there. And then from that standpoint, it's just less about, to me, the pressure and more about possibilities. And that Sam goes out there and he elevates himself, plays with confidence, starts to push himself even into the outer edge of that top 5 territory in the sport. He can come in from a contract demand standpoint, Super Bowl winner, playing like a top 5, keep getting even better. Like, I can kind of ask for what I want to ask for. But likewise, if he comes back and has a similar season for both the good and the bad being the turnover aspect of it, cumulatively speaking, I think that's where it becomes a little bit more of, okay, that's going to factor on these negotiations, Sam. You know, that is a part that, you know, we get with you, that comes with you. And I think that's probably where the negotiations will end up kind of falling more than him necessarily elevating to the I'd love to see top 5 Sam, but I think it's more of the latter than the former in the way that it probably goes OEL. But you're right. He's got a lot of play as far as there's a heavy variance on what he can go make himself. We can almost write a blank check if he plays this season in the right way. He doesn't even have to play like Stafford MVP like to get there, as we know with quarterbacks. Will Titan have a feeling LaFleur is going to pull a Vermeil? The Cards could be like the 1999 St. Louis Rams, gateway to West, gateway to the best. Ooh. There's some folks out there got some Cardinal love, man. I know I'm not there, but there are plenty of folks that are definitely more in on the, hey, I think this team can make some noise. Hey, I think this team's not that far away. You know, Jake's one of them out there. I think Jesse's feels they're a little closer out there in the round table. HSG, real question we have to ask: if the Niners do get Crosby, do we have to make a move for someone at that point? I mean, you kind of got to go get TJ Watt, don't you? Just to keep up with the Joneses. I mean, just to keep up with the arm, like, well, they just got an intercontinental ballistic missile. I guess we got to go buy ours. They can't hit our country for 5 minutes out, and we got it. Ours is going to take 15 minutes to get there. I need one of those Blackbird speed ballistic things. Give me one of those. Some of those rods from God. It's the price, HHG. You want to live in the NFC West. That's just the price of doing business. Dak says, Brando, thoughts on the media saying the NFC North is the best division in football. Not to say they aren't the second best, but I think the West has 3 Super Bowl contenders again. I think the North has 1. I think you touch on exactly where I would stand on this. I think the NFC North is a very impressive division. I think it's got more depth to it than ours. Their 4th team is better than our 4th team. But as well, the other 3 teams are better than all of their other 3 teams. So like your bottom feeder being better than our bottom feeder doesn't worth a whole hell of a lot to me. And I think that they get a lot of credit out there for, like, the Lions get credit for just kind of having been around for a while, legitimate, having some good talent. But things have kind of drawn away from that team in recent years. They have felt a little bit like maybe they topped out 2 years ago, that they're not as strong. And it seems like every offseason, rather than adding and feeling like they're building more upon, it feels like they're pulling more away. You have the Conklin left tackle retirement. You know, so now Penny Sewell's got to move from right tackle to left tackle. Hopefully that transition, and it should move pretty smoothly, but he's got to move in. Now you got to go find the right tackle too. Ragnow retired just a couple of years ago. They're very important center. David Montgomery moved this offseason in free agency, which that 1-2 punch was very important. There's things Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't do as a running back that Montgomery does do that's now lost. You know, they not have really ever found anything super valid to pair with Aiden Hutchinson out there on that defensive line. You know, it's very much just all on his shoulders to kind of make it go. And so it's like, yeah, I look at that team, then you go, okay, Vikings, don't know who their quarterback is. I don't see Kyler Murray taking them over the top. Not in that offense. You go, okay. We got Chicago, everybody's hot to trot on, and they had a great run last year, and Caleb certainly has quieted a lot of the naysayers. But at the same point in time, a team like Detroit, where you're like, yeah, but did they get stronger this offseason, or did they get weaker this offseason? No DJ Moore, your all-pro center, Pro Bowl center, retires. Jaquan Brisker, Edmonds, the linebacker, moves on. Kevin Byard moves on. I mean, they naturally will be better. Their pass rush still leaves you wanting. Their offensive line still leaves you wanting. They're getting a lot of benefits of the doubt, Dak. The NFC North is, I think. Take even the Green Bay Packers. We're continually waiting on Jordan Love to take that final step. It's coming at some point. I'm telling you, it's coming. Boy, is it going to come at some point here. It's coming. It's any minute now. Maybe next year. Maybe next year. You got Micah Parsons talking like it's going to take him through the first 6 games of the season even to get back onto the football field. That's another team, yet another team in that division that's been like slowly draining off talent in recent years. If you look at it, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, gone this offseason. Rashawn Gary, gone after you lost Ryan Clark last year. Middle linebacker moving on. It doesn't have as much of that foundation of talent there as they felt like they've had even in recent years past, but they're going to be just better. Why? And it's not to say it's a bad division. It's not to say it isn't a very strong division, but is it an elite division as far as to have real, like you mentioned, Super Bowl contending teams? If Love takes the step forward for the Packers, if that defense can find something else other than just simply Micah, make it all happen for us, please. I don't know. I'm not buying what they're selling, Dak. And this division is not just a flash in the pan division that was just like great last year. Remembering last year was an all-time type season for this whole division collectively. And it's also been a division for the past 10 years that's tended to be the best division in football year in, year out. So you got to knock us off. You got to knock the big dogs off. You got to prove yourself. You guys got one playoff win last year. How many did we have in this division collectively? Niners got 1, Rams got 2, we got 3, 5. If I played in the NFC West, I'd want more money if the 49ers get Crosby too. HHB, how does the supplemental draft work? Like, do certain teams get involved? Not at all. Not all 32 teams. Yes, not all teams are going to get involved. There's not always a supplemental draft because there's not always players available to the supplemental draft. The basic terms of it work like this. It's, I believe, a blind process where you have player A, in this case, Sorsby, who's available. You as a team can come in, and you as a team can now offer throw out there what you're willing to offer. And just like with any draft, so if the Kansas City Chiefs come in and they say, hey, we'll put a 2nd round pick down on Sorsby, and then the Arizona Cardinals say, hey, we'll put a 2nd round pick down on Sorsby as well. The lesser team, the worst team, is then going to get the services of Sorsby. So they're like a draft. There's that pecking order. And then the way it works is that the next year's draft, HHG, the Cardinals would then lose their 2nd round pick for 2027. That's how that kind of works with it. And it can be a team offering a 1st round pick. That's the part of this where there's kind of that blind bidding war thing going on, where if you think teams are going to be hot to trot, maybe you think it's going to take, like the Chiefs, for instance. We were talking about this earlier in the show, where it's like, well, maybe a playoff team looks at Sorsby and says, one of these bottom feeders is going to give a 2nd round pick for him. How about we just throw a 1st round pick because we're going to be in the playoffs next year. And so like that 1st round pick's not going to hurt that much. And then we get the 5th year option on him. So that's kind of how it works. You end up getting back the pick later on down the line. Cardinals are dumb as F. It's true, Brees Skrilla. They're not the smartest, not the brightest of bulbs. It's the desert heat. It burns out the brain cells, man. Brian Myers, thank you for the $5 donation. Brandon, sorry if I missed it, but thoughts on Sorsby in the supplemental draft? No worries, man. I appreciate the donation. It is on that where you've got to make the blind guess on where you want to put him, where you want to put your selection. It seems like right now the bare minimum is going to be a 3rd round pick on Sorsby, but I think the likelihood is it's probably going to end up on a 2nd round pick, being that that's what it takes to get him. I think that there's going to be probably one of these lesser teams that are below like Seattle or below like a playoff team that's going to jump on him in the 2nd round. I don't know if it would be the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are in play. I think there's a lot of teams here that are a possibility that you could go through. Teams that might even have a quarterback that's established, Brian, but that look at this as a way of like, hey, we can start to have a pathway to moving off that quarterback, and it doesn't have us pressed. We don't have to vault this guy next year, but down the line, we've got our way to now move to the next guy, and we've got him under club control for a while to kind of figure that out. So, I mean, Burrow with Cincinnati and Goff with Detroit with only a couple of years left on his deal. Hurts with Philadelphia. Dak with the Cowboys. Hell, even a Minnesota team, like Minnesota right now, where they're standing with the two guys in house, go get one more quarterback and try to add one more into the mix of competition. So there does seem to be enough there. With Sorsby, I've watched about 2 games of his with the highlight package, and my assessment of it is that I think from a physical ability standpoint, he's got a lot of similarities to Arch Manning. I don't think that he's got things that Arch Manning has that I would call lineage skills, almost stuff that's probably been kind of passed down to him from working with his uncles and just kind of coming from the background that he does that allows him to be a little bit more refined for the position than Sorsby is. But Sorsby can move really well. He's got a fairly live arm. Second round evaluation right now, but easily a guy that could elevate himself into first round discussion with the final, year in college that would have been legitimate. And so just takes a team doing that kind of math, Brian, that looks at it and they say, we think he would have taken that leap. We like the skill and we think that leap would have he would have taken that jump. And so essentially we're getting a top 15 rated quarterback talent and then for second round value. And that's why I think this ends up driving it kind of in that direction of it. But, he's got some ability to him. I know there's the gambling stuff. I can't speak to that as far as, whether that should make him a no-go or not. But as far as just physical ability on the field and what he brings to the position and his, he can sling it and he can move and work off script a little bit. And he's got a pretty good throwing motion. So I do think he probably ends up going the second round. Corey, NFL players more afraid of the low hits than the high hits, I've heard. Yeah. It used to be the famous story about Larry Fitzgerald. He'd say, don't, I think he used to say, don't go low or something. I want to say, it's like you get an ACL tear. That thing can knock you out for a year and a half. You get a concussion, you'll be out for a week or two. Yeah. Thank you, Seahawks Daddy. NFC Warehouse Down Table is so much fun. We got a great showing out there, Seahawks fans, that's for sure. Trapcat, I think Mike was the happiest in the last roundtable. Cardinals got talked about the most in the last episode. We did give him some Cardinal love, man. It was cool. Long overdue. We dominate the rest of the discussion over there. We got to give him some. Got to give the Cardinals a love out there. Banker, how toxic is the NFC East roundtable? Philly, Giants, Cowboys, the big 3 beefs. Banker, you joke, but I've heard some stories. I'll say that. I've heard some stories, and. This country is a country that gets often painted as that we're all kind of the same. And you got different cultures, different parts of this country, West Coast, East Coast. I've lived on both coasts. There is a difference between East Coast to West Coast as far as attitude, outlook, way to go about their business. Neither's better or worse, just different. And things do get a little more heated over there on that NFC East roundtable as far as I think a little bit more below the belt shots start getting swung at times. Yeah. Beast Griller, sorry, but losing K9 pretty much killed us. We won just in time. Yeah, we'll see, man. I think the team's done some steps and there's a lot more on this team that helped you to win too. K9 was definitely a big helping hand, but I think there's a lot with this team that is well situated to be able to go out and make some noise again this year. Visor of kicks. I feel like after that 6-6 tie we had with Arizona that one year, that kickers have been a downfall. I expect them to miss field goals or extra points. Yeah, a little rough. I mean, Myers had a hell of a season last year, Visor. Set an NFL record for points, and what do you have? 5 field goals in the Super Bowl. So it's he had one of those kind of years where it's it was pretty amazing, and he's been a great kicker for us. But it's a tough position, man. You can put investment into it and suddenly a kicker falls off the cliff. You can have a guy doing good one year and the next year he just suddenly seems to lose the ability to kick. But it's also one we want to invest in. And, that we want to put, we want to make a point of emphasis on this team. You can't replace K9 that easy. Well, no, I don't think you can replace K9 that easy. And I think he's a very good back, Beast Grilla. He's not a perfect back. And there are places within K9's game that he is deficient in. I think he's at best an average as a pass catcher out of the backfield, and he is below average as a pass protector. But, when it comes to running back and running back success and his time here in Seattle, Brees Skrilla, he had his best run at the end of the year last year. And is that because the light came on for K9 at the end? Or is it because the conditions you created for K9 success finally came into bloom at that time of the year last year? being that you finally had a system in place that was a cogent offensive system, that you had a commitment to running the ball, that you had an offensive line with actual talent and continuity up front to open the holes up for them, that you had the receiving core to keep the defense honest, that you had the quarterback to keep the defense honest, that you had the defense to get off the football field and not allow teams to score constantly so you could afford to be able to run the ball. And K9 was able to take advantage of that. It's not to say he doesn't have really good talent and that he was able to then maximize that once he was given those parameters. But the next running back who comes in to step in for your Seattle Seahawks, Beast Griller, is also going to get those same parameters. The beautiful part about the Charbonnet and Walker situation is it has provided for us an experiment. All the people who made love running backs, and I'm not painting you on this, Beast Griller, it's more just a point to this, that there are people out there that will paint running backs to being the end all be all, that this is what will drive the running game success. And then there are the analytic people that say to you, no, it's a lot of these other things that I just mentioned that are more of the things that will generate the running game success and be the true thing that will drive you to be productive in that way beyond the star running back. That the actual talent between the running backs is not that huge of a difference really. And what we got to see over the last 4 years here with the Charbonnet Walker experience is just that. That when you didn't have those factors at play that I just mentioned, you weren't able to maximize those running backs. You got those running backs injured as you had Walker injured throughout his time here. When you were able to maximize those things, then you got the most out of them. And so I think you're going to get the most out of him. Are you going to have as talented a running back as Walker? Maybe not. We'll see with that. Certainly the team put more investment into replacing Walker than just the initial selection of Walker himself and making a first round selection for Jadarian Price like they did. And he certainly is a pure fit to the system and his running style to this outside zone, which he absolutely crushed it on out there at Notre Dame when he was asked to do it. But to me, that's been the part of this that I've come to on this Beast Griller is that you're not wrong and that it's not easy to replace him, but that it's these other factors and parameters that drive the rushing game's success. And that we got to see that intimate experiment here in Seattle. Like we got to do something no other team has done. There's no team in the last 10 years that went back-to-back years taking running backs in the first or second round. We did back-to-back second round picks, but there's been nobody that's done that. Nobody. We went out there and we were like, we're going to run this flag pull up and give it a try. And we kind of got smacked right in the face with the fact that the hard-learned lesson here is that the analytic folks are right on this. And that this process will guide you to the light as far as finding pass rush or finding rushing productivity. Corey, the NFC West roundtable event should be week 5 at home against the Niners. That'd be cool. I haven't heard an update on when we're going to maybe be doing that. Beast Griller, I live in Arizona. I went to the Cardinals versus Seahawks last year. We put belt ass on Kyler. Boy, did Mike have him figured out by the end. Just seemed like he had him kind of understood how to play him. Nice. That's a hell of a birthday win there, Skrilla. The NFC North may be the deepest division. Their worst team is better than our worst team. Yeah. Our top 3, especially the top 2, blow their top 2 out of the way. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. And what's more important, you know? You're the best of your worst or our best of our best. Yeah, this is what I think, Banker. Lions' year was the year they lost the Niners in the NFC game. That was the one. You had the lead in that game. You should have probably won that game. I think even after that game, Campbell was like acknowledging that this was maybe our best shot. Unfortunate, man, but it feels a little bit like that. And they just don't feel like all these aggressive teams out here in the NFC West. I don't sense from the Lions in the last year in and year out in this like run they've had that they've been very aggressive, that they've been pushed to do things to really try to take this thing over the top. They just kind of keep just kind of fitting to serve, you know? And I think if you want to be a Super Bowl contender, you got to do a little bit more in this day and age than just sort of just kind of volley it back. We yell 2 roundtable shows a week. Z-Bob working overtime. Jake's going to talk even more. Oh, joy. And Pumpkin's going to meow more than you would get to talk. Probably. She knows what time it is when it's roundtable. It's going to be fun, though. We're going to keep them to an hour tight. If we do 2 of them as well, we're committing to just in and out an hour. And we've got a kind of a program for how we'll do it. But you never know. You know, with Jake, he's going to get long-winded. Right. It says Trap Cat. Lions really did seem like a mystery. Like, did they get good or did they get bad? They just stopped pushing. Like Aiden Hutchinson should have a Jonathan Grenard type rusher opposite of him right now. He should have a more dynamic tackle than Aleem McNeil next to him. That offensive line should have been even more reworked than it's been reworked. And they've done some things to handle it, but they've just been kind of like piecemealing it a little bit and reacting to it as it's happened rather than getting out in front of it. And I think in this NFL, you just can't afford to do that. If you're a good team, as I always say, identify where you're at. Lions over the last couple of years, going into last year, we're an elite team, a team that could say that we could be a Super Bowl contender. We're right there. Okay, make your moves based upon that. And they made their moves more like a team that was, I don't know, ascending. And sometimes that misidentification, I often point to as being a misidentification of a team that is bad that actually thinks they're good. But sometimes it could be a misidentification the other way too. Team that thinks they're, and I don't know, it's just strange with them. Good Skriller, after that Watson deal, Green Bay is not going to be able to pay anyone. Yeah, it's kind of a strange deal on that one too. And you feel like, is it because you guys lost those other 2 receivers and you're just not quite sure with Golden what you got? But that's to your point, B. Skriller, and that's the problem with the Parsons deal and how much he cost on this is that you're paying Jordan Love. It's just like they're not only a team that's not necessarily the most cash-rich team, but you're also the team that's kind of already shot your wad. And you're not going to be a team that's going to play that game of let's go void your money. You won't do that at all. So they are in a little bit of kind of like what they are is what they are. Oh, I remember you had some family around. I do have some family around Washington. No, I do. You're right about that history. Go on, and now both teams need their defenses to take leaps, but Super Bowl 61, Cincinnati Bengals versus Chicago Bears, Burrow versus Williams, 2 scariest quarterbacks in both conferences. Ooh. I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if it happened, but if it did happen, it would have to be both of those quarterbacks carrying, not only being 2 of the scariest quarterbacks potentially in the conferences there, Oiler Titan, but they'd have to be carrying that load to make it happen. Anything's possible. Dropcat, the Bears are good. Just, I think they're a little overrated. They beat the Rams in the playoffs first round. The Iceman just didn't stay calm and jump too fast. Yeah, it was a weird game from the Bears standpoint on that one. And definitely when they had a possibility of winning. And I definitely some strange approaches they had in that game. Defensively, a masterful game plan. Absolutely against Stafford, but offensively strange, especially in that environments in those conditions. And I do think like you do, they are a good team. It's just they are running into this thing like I think the Lions, where I'm like, okay, you were here last year. I don't think you were Super Bowl made ready last year. I think you were a really good team, playoff team. Have you made yourself more than you were last year? Are you going to be more than you were last year? I mean, and the answer seems to come down to, well, Caleb will just naturally get better, and they'll be better because of that. Despite there being a tremendous amount of losses that the team's kind of suffered from this offseason. I know Kobe coming in there replacing Brisker, but how big of a leap of an improvement is that at that point? I'm not sure. And they had a need for just getting a pass rusher in there, and they didn't really address that this offseason. Remember when the Lion fans all wore ski masks at the game against the Seahawks and the Seahawks snatched them off their faces? I do remember that. Well, yeah, funny. When Sam was with the Vikings, the NFC North was the best division. Sam comes to the Seahawks. It's the NFC West. That's the best division in football last season and should be this season. Yes, sir. Sam is the key. I think every team just got better, and I'm trying to find where we got better. That's fair. I think that some of this comes from the fact that when you have so many guys on your team that are set, and the starters are set, and you're the Super Bowl team, I don't know that there's a need necessarily a driving force that you have to ultimately get better. And I don't know that we've necessarily have gotten worse, B Skrilla. I mean, with the Walker Jadarian Price thing, you can tell me, and I'll give ground you on this and saying, okay, Walker's marginally a little bit better than Price. I don't think that he's like going to be sensationally a huge difference between these two talents necessarily. And I do think that the Tayakata outperformed Kobe Bryant last year when he played for him. He just did. And while Woolen gave you solid snaps out there, I don't think that there's a lot you can replace that production. He wasn't an all-pro, wasn't a Pro Bowler, wasn't getting 6 interceptions. What do you have? 1 pick last year. You still got your issues with him in the run game and commitment level and connective level, the taunting penalties, 4 over last year. I think you bring in your Julian Love, Julian Neal, and we'll see with it. But even much like the Walker thing, it's maybe a minor step back at the worst case scenario of that. And then you're now coming back and you're bringing back what was, as I pointed to, it's one thing to say you're going to have natural improvement, but it's other thing to say, well, I have one of the youngest rosters in the NFL. And then that's one of the reasons I think that the natural improvement will be there. If I'm saying I'm the Rams or the 49ers or one of the elder statesman team in the league, there's probably not natural improvement that's going to happen there. You are what you are. When I'm the 3rd youngest roster in the NFL that's won the Super Bowl, I do think that there's a little bit more of a reason to say that team will naturally get better. B Skriller, you return back all 5 of your offensive line starters and all 5 of your backups that you've never done. You haven't done that here in Seattle in 20, 30 years. All 5 and all 5. That's going to bring returns. That's going to make you better. Year 2 of Sam working with these receivers, not just having the one off season, but now a full off season, having a full off season with Rashid Shaheed, returning all of your tight end starters, all of your backups, your fullbacks 2 deep, all of your receivers coming back. That collectively will not make the offense worse. It should make it better. Even with the minor back you might take with, like I'm saying, I'm giving you some ground on the Walker thing where even if that goes a little bit back, okay, a little bit back there, but this other stuff takes steps forward. Likewise, defensively, Fowler is an improvement over Mafe. He is a better player than Mafe. So you didn't take a step back there either. You're 4 deep there. You're improved off your edge. And Riley Mills coming into the defensive tackle rotation makes you stronger there as the guy that will fill in for Peely was there taking that before. He fills in on Peely. He's a better player than Peely. So I mean, it's one where I think that you didn't have that need as much like these other teams who are chasing us. We're not chasing them. And that there is going to be some natural improvement. I am doing some advanced math on this, but again, it is to that fact of saying this, Bree Skrilla, 3rd youngest roster in the National Football League. Not in this division, not in this conference. In the National Football League, the 3rd youngest roster in the NFL won the Super Bowl last year. The Legion of Boom team, back in 2013, set a record for being the youngest roster to win a Super Bowl in NFL history at that time. Got back the next year. Because there was even going to be some natural improvement, even if there were some things you took steps back on in that next year into 14, there was going to be natural improvement from that young roster getting even better. I think the same thing takes place here. As well as remembering Big Skriller. Still sitting on $28 million of cap space, sitting on 12 selections for the next year's draft. John's not going to just sit on all those picks. There is more that's going to be done between now and the trade deadline, making this team even better. K9 had more receiving yards every game than guys like Puka. I'm not sure what you're saying there, Skrilla. I mean, Skrilla, I'm old enough to remember on this. We were halfway into the year last year and people were like, should Charbonnet be starting over Walker? It shows you what a great run he had at the end of the year, that it could turn around so thusly that it goes from so much of the fan base hot to trot on moving off of him and having him as a backup, and he just dances too much. He doesn't find the hole. Charbonnet is much more decisive, to getting to the point that it's a decimating factor to lose a running back, which that's not the nature of the NFL, Skrilla. It's not the nature of the NFL we live in. It's not what the analytics people have taught us. Maybe if this was 1984 and we're talking about Eric Dickerson leaving the Rams, that's one thing, or Barry Sanders leaving the Lions. But in this day and age, this stuff is not as much of that death knell for that position. There's a reason that the position's been devalued. There's a reason that Walker went out there and signed a franchise record-setting deal at $15 million per year. That's the biggest free agent contract given to any running back in NFL history. Meanwhile, you've got wide receivers making $40 million per year. There's a reason for this, and that means that we can get around this. We can overcome this. Nam and Pops. Hey, Brandon, how are you? What happened to the other two guys in the round table a few years back? What happened to the other two guys on the round table? I don't know what you mean on that, Mom and Pops. We had Norb on there before I was on there. And just, I don't know if Norb was as much interested in doing the round table on that side of it. But I don't know. You might have to elaborate a little bit more on what you mean. Yeah, Skrilla, I would say O-line, if you look at it, one of the big drivers of O-line too, and the analytic folks talk about this, continuity. That to get a good O-line, you have to have them working in lockstep unison. And you don't make that happen in 1 year. And that if I can have these guys for multiple years playing together, that I can have a defense run a stack box, and my center and my left guard don't even have to do the move where they turn their head to each other. They just know what each other's going to do. They sense a stunt or a loop. I don't have to look. I just know what he's going to do because we've repped this out so many times. And that improvement will come. And this is not pie in the sky. This is not like, I wish it will be this way. This is how the NFL's tended to work. And it's so hard to do this in the NFL with free agency, and especially with at times the way the teams don't value their offensive lines like they should, to create this continuity from starters to the depth. And that it's one that's, you've got not only that continuity, but remembering within it, Skriller, first round pick to Charles Cross, first round pick to Grace Zabel, third round pick to Abraham Lucas, fourth round pick to Anthony Bradford, another third round pick to Christian Haynes is one of those backups that you're hoping can be a strong backup if he has to come off the bench. They've put not only the contractual values in there on the extensions you've given to Lucas and Cross, but you put the draft capital in there, and now you've got the continuity on top of it. That will create a better offense on the back of it. That will make the running game go no matter who's carrying the rock. I guarantee it. Sharps might be back sooner than you think on this, Skrilla, too. I don't know if he'll be out for a long, long period of time. We'll see on that. Pumpkin only gave us her ears today. She's feeling a little shy. Worst Tree 24. Thank you for the $5 donation. Worst Tree. Hey, B, did you hear on Florio's podcast? He said D'Amico Bryans is a better coach than Mike Mack. I cringed so hard. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Florio, I got to be honest with you, like his takes on football are kind of like pretty rudimentary and pretty like at times silly. I don't know that I think he's a guy that loves football, but I don't know if he really understands the sport as well. Right. And, so, I'm not shocked to hear him say that. It's off your rocker crazy because you've got Mike in his second year getting a Super Bowl, and his star should be shining as bright as any coach in this sport right now with what he's accomplished. But this is also a little bit of what we've had as far as what's been a bit frustrating to, I think, the 12's fan base throughout this offseason is that you're coming off a Super Bowl victory and everyone's telling you now how the Rams are definitely going to win it over you next year and how the Rams should have won it over you last year because of this luck play is the only reason that you won it. And then you're hearing about how all these other players and all these other coaches are better than what your guys are. And it's kind of confounding because you weren't just merely good last year. You didn't just win a lot of games, but then lose in the playoffs. You went out there and you dominated. And this is not a guy in Mike McDonald that's 62 years old and he's on his fourth stop as a head coach. He's in his second year as one of the youngest head coaches in the NFL accomplishing this success. That should be opening up the eyes. But Texans are a du jour team. They're a an in vogue team to get hot to trot on. And that's what some of this is. And it is a bit of the extension of West Coast. Out here in the Pacific Northwest, they're just not going to give us our respect, but it is weird. It is weird when you come off a Super Bowl win that this is the way this goes and people are just, oh yeah, that guy exists out there. How do you make any case right now whatsoever that DeMeco Ryans is the better coach than Mike? Mike's defense outperformed his defense. You put more quarterback, investment in what you've done from draft capital wise to bring Stroud in there. I don't, doesn't make any sense how he can make that argument at all. It's silly. But again, Florio's just kind of whatever with some of the stuff he says. I really believe it, Skrilla. I'm not trying to sell you on a false bill of goods in that I watched that Charbonnet Walker thing well aware of the analytic folks and the arguments that they had made at that time, where at that time they're saying, look, you can take a running back in the second round. That's fine. We certainly don't want you taking one in the first round, but if you're going to take one in the second round, that's fine. But then do you have these conditions in place to maximize that guy? Because when you have a running back that's going to be on a rookie contract, that's when they typically are going to be their most productive in their NFL career. That's the sad state of being a running back, unfortunately. And so if you're going to then have that guy be at his best on his rookie deal, have that support there for him to maximize him when he will be at his best in his pro career. And unfortunately with Charbonnet and Walker, you weren't able to do that. It wasn't that they didn't each find a little bit of success here early on, but they weren't maximized. You weren't able to really take advantage of that top flight talent. Because if I've got guys penetrating into the backfield, snap after snap, hitting my guys behind the line of scrimmage, and a stat that stood out on this, B. Skrilla, let me see actually if I can find it because I think it'll open. It's a very interesting stat. Probably knowing me, I didn't. Okay. Oh, no, that's not it. Darn it, probably deleted it. Didn't mean to. Okay, so there's a stat that came out 2 years ago. It was 2 years into the run of Charbonnet and Walker, and I can't find a Skrilla, so you'll have to take my word for it. The Seahawks were 32nd in the National Football League on A and B gap runs off the shoulders of the center or runs off the shoulders of the guards. On A and B gap runs, the Seattle Seahawks running backs averaged 3 yards before first contact. Really, it's a representation of penetration, really, that blockers aren't getting the job done. The Eagles that year, and this was just 2 years ago, led the NFL, I think, at like 2.9 yards or it was 2.9 yards for the Eagles running backs at number one. So you got 0.3 to the Eagles at 2.9 to show I can't speak now. Sorry, again. But how much of a difference there was between those two. And that's again, those guys can't get around that. They can't be as effective if I'm getting hit in the backfield. Doesn't matter how talented I am. I do my dance move, but then the play's got to be hit on a certain timing point. I'm just going to have the avalanche overtake me, and maybe it's a yard gain. And that's where, to me, this has been that really cool experiment that's been posted in front of us to prove this out. What is the truth of it? Are the analytic heads right, or were those people that love themselves running backs right? It's a very fierce argument. It's a heavy debate. It's been going on here in the NFL for 10 years, especially the analytic folks gaining more traction. But unfortunately, or fortunately for us, because we're on the good side of it now, and now we've set this thing up, the analytic folks have been proven right, and pretty thoroughly so in regards to this. Yeah, Kubiak was very huge for K9. He was able to correct some of the vision issues K9 had by removing some of the freedom from K9. You've got door A, B, C, not door E, F, G, H. You've got to operate within that. And you're going to have to be decisive in your decision making within that. Go Hawks, industry worth. It's really good to see you in the house. I hope you're doing well. Trap Cat, most of the players we lost were rotating with others, though the whole season, and the team was still holding its own. That's why I don't feel our losses were that big or bad. Agreed. Agreed. Pamela says, go Seahawks from Lucaston. My son, Miss L, really? Well, thank you, Pamela. Go Hawks. Thank you for checking on in. Hope you're having a good one. From Austin. Shout out to Michael. Hope you're having a good one out there. Appreciate you. Lockiston. Hopefully I pronounced that right. I feel like I pronounced that right, Pamela. Baker, Bears better cash in before they pay Caleb 50 to 60 million per year. Third year of that deal goes through this season. To your point, Banker, third year goes through. He's gonna come back to the table after this season. And you're that number 1 overall pick, and then you've produced. Like even Kyler got paid, right? Yeah, I could have done without Caleb on the Fat Madden cover too, Skrilla. I kind of was like, Sammy D makes divisions better. I missed your super chat. I was a little late on acknowledging it, I think there, which is my bad, man. But thank you for the donation on that. I get caught up sometimes. Worst, I don't see the donos when I'm in the chat, and sometimes just get deep into my bag on the chat. So I never really have liked Florio's takes. I really haven't. I think that he sometimes can provide some good stuff when it comes to with his lawyer background on contracts and legalese and, processes like, okay, but when he starts to delve into actually trying to talk about football itself, he is very surfacey fan. And, I think there's even times where Sims is trying to kind of like educate him a little bit and he doesn't want to have any part of it. Which can tend to be honestly can be interesting part of this sometimes is that you do get people sometimes that are just wantonly not interested in trying to understand the sport to any of the depth angle of it, but then they're going to have these, very strong opinions about outlooks that would kind of require you to understand some of the depths of this stuff. But I just, it's silly. You can maybe make a case for a couple of coaches in this sport being better and Andy Reid's or your McVay's. Okay. But it's not a long list, and you're not going to tell me that a coach that's not ascended and accomplished what he's accomplished, is going to be over him. There's no way, no how on that. Appreciate the support, Worst Tree. Sorry, a little bit slow on the donos sometimes. I get going, man. Go Hawks, Pamela. Or if I agree about not having to be a big-time player, but the special teams signed a bottom-tier receiver, but a tier 1 cover man. Special teams got better, best coverage guy in the league. Let's go, man. Let's go. Good to have you back, Megan. Let's go. The natural progression is what we need for most, for sure. Improve chemistry and keep building. There we go, man. It's very cool you got all of these starters you're able to return on especially the offense, along with almost all the depth. I mean, you get to kind of do both. It's so cool. Yeah, most special teams back too. We'll be the best again this year. Yeah, definitely. It hurts losing Walker on this Skriller, and I think that this is where you have John learning lessons from his first run and doing this before. And, things I did before, things I'll do this time. And before, you paid everybody. You said everybody's going to get rewarded. We got young Rod. We're going to pay them all. I think this time through, and by some of the guys you see walk this off season, there's a little bit more from John, especially with the money that you had to spend. I mean, you're still sitting on $28 million of cap space with $500,000 of dead money. You could have gotten these contracts done if you really wanted to do them. But I think John's trying to do this more, I think, from a standpoint of, hey, I got to be a little cold-blooded in spots. I can't just reward everybody and just run it back. I got to be smarter than that. And that's another cool part of this, is that you get the opportunity with this general manager to kind of learn his lessons of what he got wrong in the past. And I think that the Walker contract's kind of one of those representations of that. Stoney says, the only reason Walker lasted the entire season, he played 47% of the snaps. KC will wear him out by week 6. That's very true. They were, they're going to want to get their money's worth. I will say the one thing with KC is that Andy Reid's got the Sean McVay-itis, where he has a tendency to fall back into wanting to throw the ball and not always stay committed to running the ball. And he's gotten kind of worse with age with that, it feels like. Mayfair, I wanted Cannon to stay, but I want Cannon $15 million per year. I didn't either. I'm in the same place. That was kind of a place where, from John's perspective, I go, okay, 10 million. Okay, maybe 11. Maybe 11. But I'm not going 4 over the top of that. And that's where you have to draw a line, I think, as an organization. And if other teams want to overpay, let them overpay. Find smarter ways to build your roster. And I think that's what John's doing. Skrilla, those are great points, though I agree with everything you said. I feel a lot better about the situation. Well, thank you, Skrilla. I believe what I say on this, and it's been one that's been the running back debate and the argument of it. It's been one I've been very interested in monitoring and kind of tracking, not just here within Seattle, but looking at other organizations and teams and their approach to the running game and where success is found and what those teams did to build that success. And it really is one where I think that there's a tried and true tested way of this coming about. And I can't blame anyone for looking to the running backs. I can't, Skrilla, because this was something that drove this for so long in football, for so many decades. In the 80s, it wasn't about the quarterbacks. It was about the running backs. You had us taking Kurt Warner with the 3rd overall selection in the 1983 draft, just after the Los Angeles Rams took Eric Dickerson with the second overall pick in that draft. Could you imagine something like that happening now in this day and age? But that's where it was for a long, long period of time. It just has moved into a different place now. And there's a lot of reasons for it. There is. But I think I trust in it now that if you can build that, you can roll running backs through there and find success. Still got to put investment into it, right? You still want to have a talented guy, i.e. putting a 1st round pick and price like we did. But that you'll maximize whatever talent you have there with putting those other parameters in place. Making sure they're on point. Yeah, if Aaron Donald retires, it starts to get silly. Yeah, Brian Florio is definitely Viking Homer, and the shit stirrer stuff is definitely, there's a little bit of I like drama angle to Florio going on, Which isn't kind of weird when Sims was starting to tell us about some of the gossiping the coaches' wives were having in the background to the whole Rossini Vrabel thing, and he started to get all pissy about that for some reason. It's like, oh, now you don't like drama, huh, Mike? I actually kind of wanted to hear what Chris had the wives saying. Kind of wanted to know what they were saying. I think Chiefs with K9 got a shot for real. They might. There's that commitment angle. That defense lost a lot this offseason, B. Skrilla. 2 cornerbacks, linebacker, their best safety. It's a lot to replace. But they've been a dangerous team here for many years, and if Mahomes can get healthy, he's one of the best in the sport, man. Trap got to see Garrett getting tired, and even if Darnold comes back, he'll get tired too, and just falls back to the other problem. Not a good depth and rotation of players to keep the defense up to par. Definitely can't lose a couple of those stars of that defense and expect that they're going to sustain, to your point. It's going to get a little bit rough if it goes that way. Catalyst is a good offensive line should propel your running back. Shouldn't be relying on generational type running back to make chicken salad out of chicken shit. The terrible offensive line. 100%. This is the way. It is the way. Goes back again to the running backs. Like as you go back to running backs and why talent is so similar to running backs and why some of this, the talent discrepancy isn't there, is that there are positions where the best of the best have this talent separation from the worst of the worst. Running back has as close to talent proximity as any position in the sport for one fundamental reason. When you go back to Pee Wee, when you go to high school football, when you go at the lower levels, the position most will gravitate towards at that time is going to be quarterback and running back. And if you can't sling the rock, you're going to try to go be a running back. So the most athletic, the fastest, the quickest, they go to this position. And so when you do get into guys that are even, not at the top tier, they're not that far from the top tier because that general talent collective is there. Tasmanian. Oh, my bad, Pamela. Lucaston, Tasmania. Ooh, that's out there on the island. Let's go. What's up, Pamela? Tell Michael I said, what's up? Shout out down south. We're growing down that southern hemisphere, Megan. We're putting in that work. HHGB, if they introduce crossplay for Black Ops 1 and 2, will you do 6v6? Yeah, I probably would. Me and the boys have been we've been suffering. We've been just so thirsty for any kind of game that could just be like, I'm so tired of playing the same old game. Like, can we please get a new game? Anything, a multiplayer new game that's good, please. Like the industry has completely forgotten how to build games. It blows my mind. Blows my mind. I know there's a bunch of people in the first place. Have you played the first person? I don't want to play first person. I want to play the boys. I want to team up. But I'll check it out, man. I'm down. Laban hit B. How come John Schneider couldn't find late round running backs gems for a while now? The likes of Chris Carson and Thomas Rawls. It's a good question. I don't think it's been from a lack of trying. There are some running backs you've taken later. There are some guys you've tried to bring as undrafted rookie free agents. Be a Holani, Damian Martinez last year, 7th round pick. Kenny McIntosh, Liban, you took him in the 7th round a couple of years ago as well. So he's continued to take these swings. I think that you do have something to where when you take swings on players at that point though, too, it's not as clear that they're super talented. You can find diamonds in the rough and find really productive players in that place, but they're harder to find. There's more risk. There's going to be more misses within there probably too. It's one of the reasons I often say with this that I like from John's angle of this, if he's got all of his native picks, to sort of every year throw a day 3 pick at the running back position. Just toss one at it. Because if you do find the likes of one that can be a dynamic guy on a rookie contract, on a 6th, 7th round contract, and can ascend to becoming that starter at that point, that's a huge get. A huge get. And so, he's definitely still trying to do it. It's just that he hasn't had the hit rate that he had with those two guys. Yeah, let's say Barkley didn't have a good offensive line in New York. He went to the best situation with the best O-line in the league. That definitely played a part. Yep. That's part of those supporting factors. And that's part of, like when I talked to Skrill about this, if you can see other places where not only did this example play out with the Charbonnet Walker experience in the last few years since drafting them, but also even the New York to Philadelphia Saquon Barkley situation, because it is offensive line. Yes. But it's also the structure, the competency, the fact the Eagles had been really good for a long period of time and they were established, that they had a defense that was going to get the opposition's offense off the field, that you had wide receivers that, forced those defenses to, especially with Hurts, because Hurts doesn't have the best of arms, but he can throw a good 9-ball. So you force those defenses to stay in the cover 2 shell because of his 9-ball ability with having 2 receivers on the outside that can take the top off the defense. And so now Saquon doesn't have defenses concentrating on him. He's got the defense getting off the field to give him those opportunities. He's got a lead he's playing with. These are the things that set up that success. But that's a great example there, Catalyst, as far as another spot that just proves this rule of thumb out. Seeing he had sources inside. Oh, God. Yeah, Mel Fair's with me. $10 million. That's the price. That's what I'm spending. That's what you're worth. Great back at that rate. I'll take it that you fit to what we need, but that's what you're worth. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Hawks Nest. Hey, Brando, I think Sam will be able to escape Garrett long enough to make big throws, so Miles' impact will be minimized against the Seahawks. In Sammy D, we trust. Sam does a really good job of getting the ball out of his hands quick. He's a rhythm-based passer, and so, working within the context of a quick passing game suits him well. He's shown some athletic ability to move around if you need him to in that pocket too as well, to your point of that. And I think the play action game is going to help out as well to kind of mitigate some of this. The lack of high volume approach is going to mitigate some of this. I think there's some ways to work around it. He's a problem, but you can work around him. 2022 Eagles O-line had Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, Isaac Samula, and Lane Johnson. I think that's the type of trends play we should be striving for. O-line superiority. Amen, man. Turn this into a strength of the team. Make it the strongest part of the team. I have zero issues with taking that approach if they should want to. I think it would lead to some great success. Stoney, I think you'll see Garrett mainly lined up as the blind side guy. It'll be him and Cross will be going head to head mainly. What's up, Misfit? It's good seeing the house, man. Yeah, a lot of double teams, Garrett. And that's the nice thing is you run so much 12 personnel too, even if it's not a pure double team. Chip and release. You have your tight end hit the quick chip, get him moved inside, and then they're out on their route. And, verse, let's say when you have like the 3 wide receivers or 4 wide receiver looks, I don't have that tight end there that can chip now. And so it makes it harder if I'm more of a spread conceptual team to be able to handle those dynamic defensive linemen in that way. So you do have stuff set up system-wise here to be able to get around what Garrett can bring to the table. Like Chris says, relentless chip blocks against Garrett. That's what you do, man. Just chip him and go, and that's fine. You can work that into this offense. Even last year, one of our most famous plays of the year, right? The 2-point conversion to Saubert. You got Sammy going through his 4 different reads on the play. What's Saubert doing on that play? He's chipping verse. Why is he chipping verse? Because you got Josh Jones out there starting for Charles Cross. And so that he needs the help out there. And this is on a play that Jared Verse knows is going to be a pass play. So he chips him, but it doesn't eliminate him as a receiver. He gets out into his route. You find him, 2-point conversion, Seahawks win. So it's one of those ways you can kind of get around that. For show. All right. Well, we are finishing on up here at a good 3 hours in the books here down to the back play. Definitely was a perfect play. And just, one of the great plays that really to me shows the representation of Sam's growth, because here you see the resiliency of him in a game having 2 interceptions where he could have gone down the road and gotten to his head and said, I'm seeing ghosts and the Rams have got my number. And look, I can't slay this big bad dragon. Instead, he drives you down the field, making a couple of dime throws on that drive to get you down there, makes the touchdown throw to JSN in the back of the end zone, comes back to his 4th read on the play on a check down to his backup tight end. Phenomenal decision-making, and really showed where Sam is really coming forward in his game. That if all of these things that they try to say about him is true, he doesn't get that type of thing accomplished. That's not the way the NFL works. It was a very, very cool play, but really cool as well, just because it showed off where Sam has really grown in his game, and the fact that that team did not have his numbers, that he didn't care. He was going to keep fighting. Sam gets after it. Trap Cat Sam. He's no longer seeing ghosts. He's a ghost buster. And Josh Jones did a great job. Yeah, he was absolutely very important. So that's the end of the year, and you need him right there most at that point, because if that's a Stone Forsythe situation like we had a couple years ago, that can sink your whole game plan. We saw that happen. So he came out there and he held up well, and props to him. Hopefully he can do that again this year. Good to get him back. Part of that benefit of having that offensive line return, all those backups, is he's part of that fold, though it does sound like he needs to get into shape. Mike McDonald was kind of ripping him a little bit for not being in the best condition here at OTAs. So hopefully Josh is out there on the treadmaster right now, just pumping the legs away. You know what I mean? Pumping away. Glad to catch you live too, Stoney. Appreciate you, man, on that side of it. It's another great show here today with you folks. Really appreciate the fine discussion, and love the debate as always on here. It always is a good, healthy debate, I think, and you guys are getting hyped up for this team, as you guys should be. We're slowly but surely starting to turn the corner here. 17th of June. We're almost, I think, just about a month away here from the start of training camp. So it's going to come, and it's going to come very, very, very fast. I hope you guys are ready for this season, and a team that is going to be, I think, very impressive once again. It's got a great chance to repeat. So much flexibility, so much ability to make other moves. If anything happens, this goes wrong, that goes wrong, we can do this to supplement this issue and get around it. It doesn't have to be the death knell for us this year like it would be other teams that are maybe up against it. A lot of good to this team to turn over. We talked about Tory Horton today. He is one of those aspects of it. He is a guy that gives you an option where if you've got to call upon that depth, one of the big things that drove the Seahawks team last year, Kobe Bryant goes down. You don't miss a beat, maybe even improve at the position. Tyrese Knight ain't ready to go at the start of the year. Injuries in the offseason, not quite right. Drake Thomas gives you an even better year than what you had gotten out of Tyrese Knight the prior year. Ascends to becoming the starter. Josh Jobe slowly, overtaking a Woolen. So having that backup depth that you can go to where you don't miss the beat, where you can maintain, it's so infrequently seen in football, where it's all usually about the starters. And if I got to go the backups, they'll tell you next man up. They'll tell you with a lot of gusto and pride, right? They don't believe it. They don't believe it. We can believe it because we've seen it. And Horton is a part of that. So this was not a show to falsely gas you up on Horton. It's not, somebody mentioned hyperbole and hyperbole. What he did last year was really impressive. And it's very hard for rookies to come in and provide that kind of impact for especially as good a team as this, for a team that wasn't going to pass the ball a lot of times there, even in that short amount of starts that he kind of had in there. But this is a guy with the true amount of ability, and both as a punt returner and as a wide receiver, can play every wide receiver position, and a guy with a really bright future if he can just keep his health in a good spot. We will be coming back here this next Sunday, I believe, though we're going to be taking it easy over the next month or so. I'm trying to kind of chip away. It's going to take a while on that Kubiak one, man. I've been having a hard time on the motivation front there with that one because it's so much work. But we are going to get that going here at some point on that. A couple more shows we're going to be looking at here, a little bit of Zabel's rookie year here in the next couple weeks or so on that side of it, looking at what Gray Zabel brought last year to the table here at the left guard position. We're going to be doing a charity stream too as well. I've been long promising you guys that. We'll be doing a long charity stream here, hopefully within the next couple of weeks or so. Just doing a kind of a celebration of the channel. I promised you guys after we passed 22,000 that we get a live charity stream out. Long overdue. Would like to do a little bit more giving back here on this channel as I get an opportunity to do so. So we'll be doing a St. Jude's charity stream as well within the next couple of weeks. Really would appreciate you guys turning out for that. As going to try to get a lot planned for it. Be looking back at some past Hawks Nest episodes, maybe even kind of schedule it during when we'd have a Mariners game going on so we could watch the Mariners game as it was going on at the same time. So we'll be putting a little bit into that. Be on the lookout for those two shows on that side of it. Thank you guys for watching today. If you can for me, please do hit that like button. I would really, really appreciate it. A couple of other just quick notes if you guys can for me. I'm trying to get a few more reviews up for the podcast on Apple and whatnot out there. So if you happen to listen on podcasts and find the Hawks Nest out there, if you can drop a review over there, would be much, much appreciated, as I would like to get a few more over there if we possibly can do so over on that side of it. And yeah, other than that, I think we're good to go. Got the Clips channel going well over on the other side of it. Bob doing great work for me over on there as well. We're on Facebook and getting really active onto that side of it, just kind of getting over there if you happen to be on that edge of it too, the Hawks Nest on it. So a lot cooking and rolling. We're going to have a very packed year for you guys. A lot of shows lined up this season. Hope you guys are ready here, where we're going to be going multiple times every day here, through almost every day of the week here, with the exception of maybe Friday and Saturday, for the upcoming NFL season. So a lot planned for you guys. Really looking forward to this and what we got going on. Appreciate you, Brian, man. You have yourself a good one, Megan. Good to see you on in here. Appreciate you hanging on in. Hard Knocks going to be a good time, Trap Cat. Thank you, Catalyst. Appreciate you. Magic of the Gathering just helps him with his tactical approach to the football field, Chris, with Leo. Helps him with the tactical football approach. No worries, Megan. I'm over with them on the other guy on this too. So you try with people on stuff, you know. I try to bring them to the light if I can. I'm not trying to be, but sometimes you can bring the horse to water, but even once you stuff his snout into the bucket, he still will not drink. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? What are you going to do? Much love to you too on that one. Appreciate you. If you guys can for me, hit that like button, sub on up. It helps this channel out, helps it out tremendously. And I know a lot of people out there are telling you a story right now. You're hearing the national media, and you're hearing the analysts, and you're hearing the talking heads, and you're hearing the Ram fans, and you're hearing everybody out there seemingly telling you about how this was this fluke, or how this ain't going to be your there this year. It was good. I hope you enjoyed it last year, because it definitely can't happen this year. I'm here to tell you right now, and I hope you're reminded of the fact this team is ready to go back to back. This team is as well situated as any team in recent memory to go back there and get another chip again this year, and to go do so in the Rams' house. So let them do all their talking. Let them do all of their paper champions in June. When the rubber meets the road, when the pads get to popping, your team's going to be right on in the mix of it. And that should have you that should have you hyped. That should have you psyched. That should have you over the moon at the possibility of a team being able to stamp their way into history with that type of season. But just in case it doesn't, let me remind you, don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.